pursuant to an order issued by the governor of Massachusetts dated March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any individual or entity is recording this, they should advise the chair at this point in time.
And stop immediately, because if they don't have anything better to do than record our meeting, then they have bigger
Right.
problems than we can deal with.
Not seeing anyone. We will get to the next order of business, which are comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda. Hearing none, we will come to our next agenda item, which is a vote on a request to ask the Board of Selectmen to insert a warrant article amending the advisory committee bylaw. I think I've sent this out a couple of times, including about 15 minutes ago. I worked on this along with Victor, along with Dave Elaine, along with Andy, the legal brain trust here. We have also had input from Mike Puzo, and John Coughlin put the warrant article in its final form. The article primarily does two things. It deals with the terms of members to eliminate some older language that basically provided that members were to be appointed before June 30th. And then their term would start on July 1st. And for anybody else that was appointed thereafter, their term wouldn't start until the following July 1st. And it has developed in practice that because of the time needed to vet candidates through the talent bank procedures, that typically we're not having our appointments to advisory committee positions made until August or September. So we thought we needed to build in a little more flexibility with respect to members' terms. And in section 3, we wanted to revise some outmoded language about notices so that the article, the bylaw would basically say that the open meeting law was what we were going to comply with. And I think eventually there will be other bylaw amendments to notice provisions dealing with other committees that will probably adopt similar language. So is there any discussion, question, or comments?
I trust the brain trust.
I'm glad we're recording this meeting.
I mean, we certainly couldn't have had any more lawyers look at it.
Oh, sure you could, Evan.
Never too many lawyers.
Well,
I think we should give the lawyers a round of applause. They all agreed. When have we had lawyers all agree?
We did
Well, in
something
the end,
before.
we all agreed.
well,
No, it's George, it's economists who never agree. On the one
Okay.
hand and on the other hand, you know?
I knew my remarks would prompt a response from the legal community.
well, each of the 6 drafts contained improvements. So
Was it
and
only
if there's no further discussion or question or comment, I would accept a motion.
So moved.
Bob, can I just
So
ask you
moved.
one quick question?
Sure.
Sorry, I don't have the old section 5 in front of me, but I notice here that it's saying, I'm not a lawyer, but any vacancy shall committee, it shall be filled by the moderator. I know in my term, we've had a vacancy that wasn't filled. does the shall be filled by the moderator refer to the fact that the moderator gets to fill it or that the moderator must fill it?
I would say that this is a mandatory indication to the moderator that if there's a vacancy, the moderator is to fill it.
Okay, because I'm right. There's someone else who's got longer history than me. Didn't we have a vacancy that wasn't?
Yeah, you're right. I may,
So
either Tom Pyle's era or Jim Taylor, one of those years, there was a vacancy for the whole year.
Really?
Well, I'm just
Like
asking
having
a
3
question about
Beatles.
whether it's critical to fill. I don't have an opinion. I'm happy to have it be shall. I just wanted to ask because I think that's a departure from where we were.
Well, that was before my time on the AdCom. And I know the bylaw says that there are supposed to be 15 members. I do think we want to keep up a regular rotation with 5 new appointments or reappointments every year. And of course, the moderator was one of the ones who vetted this and suggested some of the changes. So I think as far as our present moderator is concerned, that he is happy with the way this reads.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, as a practical matter, I think if the moderator is unable to find somebody, I mean, he can't, you know, if he's asked thousands of people and they all refuse, you know, it's not a violation of the bylaw.
Was it the Bear Cove dog year that nobody would fill the slot?
No, it was before that.
It might have been the year before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sorry. The only reason I'm bringing, like I said, I don't have the existing section 5, so I didn't know if the shall actually was a change or if
No, it's in there.
it was shall before. So in previous, when it was unfilled, it just was unfilled even though. So I thought the shall was a new word. So never
Yeah.
mind.
I don't know what efforts the moderator made that year to try to fill it, but in any event,
Were you
if there,
looking for a motion?
yes. So the
So
motion,
moved.
the motion in essence would be for the advisory committee to ask the Board of Selectmen to insert the article as drafted into the warrant. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, and going down the list as they appear on my list of participants, we need a roll call vote. So Andy McElhaney,
Aye.
Brenda Black,
Aye.
Daveline Cooper,
Aye.
Evan Sheehan,
Aye.
Al McDonald,
Aye.
Dave Anderson,
Aye.
Erin Kelly,
Aye.
George Danis,
Aye.
Julie Straley,
Aye.
Kristen Zakowski,
Hi.
Evan Sheehan.
I'll say aye again, but. it's
Oh, did I
two
call
for
you
me.
twice?
You did. Yep.
Oh, sorry, Evan.
Aye. That's okay.
Did I call you Dave?
Yes.
Okay, I Zoom maybe. Is there anyone
This is Nancy and I say aye.
and Tina?
Aye.
Victor's eye also.
Okay,
Libby is aye.
and Erin?
You've got me, but aye.
Okay. I think I got everybody. Maybe I won't do it on the list next time, but by the pictures. So I think that's 14-0.
Okay, so it's not a tie vote.
And you mean, once again, I escaped from voting?
Yep.
And Sue, if you or Julie could shoot a text or an email to Michelle, who's at the Board of Selectmen meeting tonight, and just let her know that we voted on this 14-0,
I certainly will.
because they have it on their agenda later on.
Okey doke.
Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome.
So we finally come to the budgets. And Sue observed earlier in the day that she is going to be at this meeting throughout anyway. And to enable others to make their presentations and go about their normal affairs this evening. I think that Sue has got the first 6 budgets through.
Yeah, we did, Sue, right?
dispatch.
I was ready to go.
Well, hold your horses. So I think the first budget we're going to address is treasurer collector with Andy. I think you're presenting that, and Gene Montgomery is going to
Gene
give us all our answers.
is our treasurer and collector, fortunately for us. You'll find her budget on page 103 of your budget book. I wondered if people would want to hear the summary of pages 106 and 107, which, and perhaps 108, which explains the mission and services of treasurer and collector and what the principal duties are, or whether everybody either read that or heard it presented at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. What's your preference, Mr. Chairman?
I saw it myself at the Board of Selectmen meeting. I do think sometimes for our newer members who are seeing presentations for the first time, that it would be helpful to at least have the highlights. So,
Gene, if I may, could you walk us through 106 through 108, perhaps?
I'll be happy to. Is this going to be a screen share or will you be working from your own papers?
We all have our hard copies, so.
Okay. I will do the same then. So as Andy just explained, we've all been asked to prepare a series of slides that are designed to present a snapshot of our department's mission, our essential functions, and to touch a little bit, particularly this year, upon how COVID has impacted our ability to meet our goals and benchmarks. So if you're on slide 1, I'll call it, I don't know what your numbers are, the missions and services. The Treasurer Collector's Office is somewhat unique in that it is actually 2 offices functioning as one department. The Treasury being responsible for cash management, debt issuance, investment, and tax lien administration. The collections side, that's a lot easier to understand. They take care of the printing, the mailing, collecting of tax bills, and so forth. So we can kind of move quickly through these. I won't read everything to you. You can scan probably while I'm talking. The next 2 slides, one gives a lot of detail and statistics on what a municipal treasurer's responsibilities are. And that's followed by a similar slide with some statistics and tasks of the municipal collector. So I'm not going to read this to you, but I thought I might touch a little bit on, it's a lot of work, as you can see. If I were read it to you, it would be a lot of reading. So, how did we get this done during COVID? Well, I will say that the dual structure of the Treasurer Collector's Office lent itself really well to the hybrid work model that was instituted at Town Hall in midsummer. We set up a Team A, which we called the Treasury team, and a Team B, which was our collections team. And these teams alternated on a daily schedule rather than a weekly schedule like a lot of the other departments at Town Hall. Because of the different functions, we really needed to get each side into the office during each week. On the alternate days, obviously, people were working from home. We're fully remote capable. And so we have been able, under this schedule, have been able to answer all our phone calls, do all of our customer service work, respond to permits, answer voice messages, collect our taxes, complete the audit, so on, and et cetera, et cetera. But if anybody has any specific questions on any of those tasks, I'd be glad to field those if there's time.
Andy, did you have any comments on significant changes or drivers or percentages from last year to this year?
There were no significant changes or drivers. I note on page 109, there's a table of real estate and personal property collections by end of the fiscal year. And the percentage of the net levy that is collected and has been collected each year, of course, is either 99 or 98% in the past 4 years. So I'm assuming, Gene, that
I
this
would
year,
like to address that. Yes, that actually, I'd be happy to speak to that if you'd like me to.
please do.
So as Andy has pointed out, one of our key benchmarks is in our office, and they ask us to pick something different every year. So this was this year's, and it was appropriate for the COVID year, is to end the fiscal year with 99% of our current year's real estate and personal property tax collected. And, you know, that's a pretty high mark. And we generally meet it. At the close of fiscal 20, collections were sitting at a 98%. This drop was actually predicted, and it resulted from a decision of the Board of Selectmen, with my recommendation actually, to enact a portion of the governor's emergency legislation, which allowed the May 1st real estate tax due date to be extended to June 1st. The 1% difference that you see there represents approximately $860,000 budget dollars. Fortunately, the town has a strong cash flow and a solid fund balance. Thank you, AdCom and Board of Selectmen. So we were able to make this extension to the taxpayers without the need to issue tax anticipation notes, which would be a temporary borrowing mechanism. We did not need to do that to replace this deferred revenue. And we have caught up on all of this as of September 30th. So I think I like this scenario because it speaks to COVID and in the office. This scenario illustrates how even a modest slowdown in collection procedures, that 30-day delay, can have significant impact on a treasurer collector's ability to meet vital revenue targets. It highlights the need to continue to prioritize the continuity of workflow in the treasurer collector's office. Uninterrupted billing and collection of tax revenue and timely processing of payroll and vendor warrants are two of the most essential functions we are responsible for. This became crystal clear during COVID. These were the driving forces that insisted that we needed to be in the office to get these jobs done. So I would say they were, that's a COVID impact story from my office.
Gene, one other question. How does your office interact with the new water system?
So the new water system is handling collections with their operating company, Suez. But all of their water revenue comes in through the treasurer's office, just like the light department's revenue does. So while they do the collections, the money is deposited into our account directly from a lockbox primarily into our office and reported, just like light department revenue is. It's assigned a general ledger account number and reported up to Sue, to the general ledger as it's received, but then it is turned over to the general ledger monthly. So we are taking in their revenue. We are just not collecting their individual water bills. One of our, and that's a good question, Andy, I wasn't going to get into it, but I'll swing by this one too. On the key initiatives, one of the things we're going to be working on with the water company is to help them develop a process for leaning delinquent tax water revenue bills to the real estate tax bills. That's a ways down the line, but that is something we'll be helping them out with.
Any questions or comments from other members of the AdCom?
I do have a question, Gene, on the tax title costs. They seem to be 10,000 each year, but the actual expended often looks much lower than that. How is the 10,000 chosen, and is there room for that to be somewhat lower?
Well, there really isn't. The 10,000, part of the reason we don't dip into the 10,000 newly appropriated tax lien revenue is because we've encumbered, we encumber. So we continue to spend about 10,000 a year, close to that. This money is used to pay our legal counsel for foreclosures, and they handle all the land court activity. With land court, and as with all legal this will be easy for me to explain because I just got introduced to many lawyers on the advisory committee. The legal process is, it's fluid. So we never know when all these cases are going to come up and, be handled in land court, when they're going to start getting expensive. So a lot of the money that's encumbered is encumbered for the active land court cases that are there.
Jane, that word encumbered is a word that's, it seems like it's unique to municipal finance. Can you explain that for the benefit of our members?
So at the end of the fiscal year, if we have unexpended funds, but we have them, I guess technically they have to be invoiced. So we have a number. I think I have several land court cases. It's probably itemized on one of those pages in the report, where that money is kind of earmarked for those cases, but it hasn't been spent yet. So I send a message up to Sue Nickerson and ask her to carry those funds over into the future year, which she does. One of the things with tax title, I should explain as well, why we like to keep that $10,000 in there. Tax title budgeting is sort of like snow and ice. So if a treasurer collector does not have a tax title budget, they still spend the money, and then the town accountant, in our case, because Sue does the tax rate recap, has to add those funds to the town's expenses when they're doing the tax rate recap each year. So the town has always found it prudent to budget a sum of money, and then I try to stay under that sum of money, and it eliminates surprises.
So unspent funds would ordinarily go to fund balance at the end of the year, but if the funds are encumbered, they are still kept available for that expense in the following year.
Yes. So you'll find that we kind of roll over. Maybe I'm a little $10,000 ahead, but I'm spending. So last year I spent the maybe 7,000 that I encumbered from the prior year. And then I pick that up again and roll it over into the next year. And I have to say that with tax title as well, I should, while we kept up with all our activities, I did not place tax liens in the spring of 2020 because of COVID. It didn't seem like a good idea at that time, and I did not actively advance cases in land court. Land court was stalled for many of the months, and it also just didn't seem like the right time to do it. But I will be picking both of those activities up shortly. Those are spring activities.
Any other questions or comments?
The only comment I had is that the land court is notoriously slow. So if you add slowdowns and closings from COVID-19 to the land court's usual schedule, that puts everything back quite a bit. Even though that there are typically not jury trials up there, but in any event. Directing your attention to page 103, that's the budget. And as you can see, the salaries for the salary request is $357,327, which is 1.5% lower, roughly $5,000 lower than last year, which is the result of a staffing change in one of the two part-time personnel in the treasurer collector's offices. There are 6 people working there, 4 full-time, including Jean, the treasurer collector, and an assistant treasurer collector who sort of has been running team B, the collectors side of the office during COVID-19. 2 other full-time people and 2 part-time people. The budget is a level service and level funded, except for the lower salary because of the staffing change of the part-time person. With regard to expenses, the expenses this year are the same as last year, except $100 less. The the increase that you see, postage and courier goes from 26 to 29. And that is explained by the fact that the pay checks and other transactions that could be done intramurally through an intramural delivery system in the days of COVID have to go through the US postal system. So that explains the increase in the postage. You can't just put paycheck in somebody's mailbox. You have to send it to them through the USPS. What else is there of significance in terms of changes? I think that is pretty much it. Telephone is down, or actually has been eliminated. And what's the explanation for that, Gene? Is the RMV change?
Exactly. We have a flagging system on the Registry of Motor Vehicles to flag licenses and registrations on delinquent motor vehicle bills that required a telephone line in the office. Up until this year, the RMV has upgraded its software to a cloud-based program. So we no longer need the telephone.
And the only other item in the budget is as Victor has pointed out, $10,000 for tax title proceedings. So the expenses exclusive of tax title are $49,820. The tax title is the same, $10,000 as last year. The total budget is $417,147, which I believe is 0.6% less than last year's total budget. And the wages, I should note in passing, salaries and wages are all under the wage classification system the town's adopted, which is administered by the Personnel Board. If there are any hard questions, I'll pass them on to Jean.
Mhm.
Anything else from members of the Econ? Libby, did you want?
No.
No, okay. Any questions or comments from members of the public? Not seeing any. Andy, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do. I recommend for the Treasurer Collector's Office a salary of $357,327, a expense budget of $49,820, a tax title budget of $10,000, for a total budget of $417,147 to fund the Treasurer and Collector's Office for this fiscal year 22.
Thank you very much, Andy and Jane.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
And I think that brings us to assessors. And is that you, Daveline? And I saw
is.
Erin was on the line.
Yes.
Yes.
So let me introduce everyone to Erin Walsh, who is our, I think as of sometime last spring, became the director of the assessor's office. She used to be the assistant assessor. I think I've got that right.
Yes.
And was promoted upon the retirement before. So I think what I'll do is maybe have you just talk a little bit about what the office does and how COVID has affected it, and then I'll present the budget, if that's.
Sure.
And this is on page,
Oh, page 1.
thank you.
Sorry, I have it right here, page 1. I just forgot to say it.
Okay, so it's good to see you all. The role of the assessor's office is to provide financial stability to the town by fairly and equitably determining and assessing all real and personal property at its full and fair market value as of January 1st of each year. Currently, the office administers the assessment of over 8,700 parcels of property with an assessed value of over $7.5 billion. We currently have approximately 6,230 single-family and 1,140 condominiums in town. In addition, the assessor's office processes over 24,000 motor vehicle and boat excise tax bills each year. We also administer a variety of exemptions which are available to reduce tax obligations to certain qualifying taxpayers. Some of our key initiatives this year are to continue with cyclical inspections so we can comply with and meet the Department of Revenue guidelines. This year, because of COVID, they were temporarily stopped in March, so we had to rely much more on building permits to make sure that our data was accurate. Another one of our key initiatives was to increase the hours of our in-house data quality inspector. Carrie Coughlin was hired in 2019 to give us a little bit more control of the frequency and the quality of the inspections that we do in town. She's from Hingham and she's familiar to the area, so she's been a great asset. Prior to hiring Carrie, we relied solely on outside contractors, as well as Rick Nowlin, the previous assessor, did a lot of the inspections as well. So Carrie's been a great asset to the office and has reduced the need for these contractors. So the funding for this, the increase in Carrie's hours, is actually coming from my reval budget. So technically it's a wash in terms of the budget. So in terms of COVID impacts, as I stated before, we suspended our interior inspections, but we continued with our exterior inspections. And we use a company to review our personal property accounts. So they go around town and they drive around, they pick up any new businesses that they see. Because of COVID this year, in April, they weren't able to enter any of the businesses. So they had to estimate some of the values, such as furniture, machinery, and supplies and tools in these businesses. I have received several calls about people saying that, their estimates were wrong. So what they'll do is file for an abatement this month. And then we'll make sure that we have the values correct. So that's really it in terms of what I have. If the next part is really the budget.
Okay. All right, thank you. So this is what's been recommended is a level services budget. There are no additional requests. On the salaries, there's a decrease of about $17,500. And that's primarily because of a difference in salary to the department head. But there's also been some staff I'm going to call it reorganization. That might not be quite the right word. But in this time with a new department head coming in, the 2 part-time people are having their hours increased. So in overall, the costs go down. But as I said, that's and I think overall there's about a 9% decrease in the budget. Expenses are up a little, and I'll come to that. So I don't know, Erin, if you want to speak to the way in which Jackie's position and how that's working under the new
Sure.
system.
Yeah, and there was actually only one part-time person that increased their hours. That would be Carrie.
Okay.
The other part-time person stayed the same. Prior to when I was hired, Rick, who had been there for 12 or 13 years, had left. And our prior assistant assessor, Kathy Collins, who had been there for over 20 years, she retired, but she was able to stay on 2 days a week, sort of as a temporary employee. So that started in the summer of 2019, and that stopped on December 31st of 2020. So Kathy left her temporary employee as a temporary employee, and then we'll pick her back up a little ways down. So that's where you see the decrease in the other salaries part-time. Kathy is no longer there. And then it's just Carrie's increase in hours. Jackie Berard, who was, there's been a lot of changes in the office. So Jackie was the technician, and now she's moved over to assistant assessor as of mid-December.
Okay. So that I think explains the salary difference. On the expenses are the same with one real exception, and that is there's a consultant services of $3,000, which wasn't there before. And that is for 100 hours of consulting work from the former employee, if I got this right, who's left, so that as they need extra assistance or help, they've built into the budget being able, she's not going to be a temporary employee, but she's going to be a consultant when and if they need her, I guess. Is that the way to put it?
Exactly. Yeah, for busy times of the year and for certain periods, just to sort of have her expertise. Like I said, she's been there for over 20 years, so she's a great person to rely on.
A lot
with
of
any
institutional
questions.
knowledge. So, so that's sort of why there's an expense increase. In terms of the mapping service, well, the mapping services are going down from $6,000 to $500. That reflects the new GIS position that's actually in the IT budget that we'll come to later. But that's why that's gone down. And then the revaluation services also has gone down pretty significantly, so that overall there is a 9% decrease in the budget. Questions?
Any questions or comments from other members of the AdCom? Yes, Alan.
Thanks, Aaron. I just wanted to sort of clarify how I heard something. When you were describing the function of one of the staff folks, it was in understanding new businesses in town. I thought you said something to the effect of the drive around and see what new businesses they find. I imagine a formal process than that, but.
Yeah, it's actually, we use a company called RRC, Real Estate Consultants, and we also have form of lists that we send out for all our existing businesses to pick up all of their inventory, so to say. And RRC, they do actually, to pick up new accounts, they do drive around town to see if there's anything that's changed or anything new in town.
There's no sort of formal, I mean, if I were to open a new business, don't I file something to the town to say I'm a new business? Wouldn't that be linked in some way? No?
No.
No.
It's not linked to the assessor's office. Pretty much, we have all the existing businesses in town on a roll, but they actually drive to see if anything has changed or if anything new has been built.
Alan, for example, I moved my law office's administrative center to Hingham, and there's no filing or anything that a new business in the town needs to do.
Should there be?
I mean, we're at 99 Derby at the Regus spaces, and there are people going in and out of there all the time.
It's the owner, of course, who's going to be taxed for the real estate.
Property. Right.
Yeah.
Right, but I think Aaron was talking about personal property assessments.
Correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have to fill out schedules, for example, typically of relating to computers and business and furniture and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's old and worthless.
All right.
Any other questions or comments from the members of the committee? Anything?
Well,
from,
let me just follow up on Al's question. Does that, Aaron, in your experience, has that presented any problems? Is there anything, do you know of any towns that have a more formal system of reporting?
That's a great question. I don't. Has it presented problems? I guess there are some businesses that are picked up after they've opened. So somebody called recently who opened their business in 2017 and they actually weren't picked up until last year. So I guess there would be a delay in that case. I can certainly reach out to other towns to see if there's another process that they use to pick up personal property in their businesses.
Victor?
So Bob, this is just, or I guess I should ask you, Aaron. So this is just a personal property issue. This is obviously not for any of the real estate value. It's just for really the contents.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, just the personal property.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Victor?
Yes, I had two questions. One, on the reevaluation. I remember from past years that there used to be a 3-year cycle and now it's a 5-year cycle, I believe. And were we putting aside money each year for that 5th year, or were we taking a big hit every 5th year?
So it used to be 3 years and you would take a big hit every 3 years. This time it's going to be every 5 years. So last year we did speak about maybe splitting that over 2 years, so there wouldn't be such a big increase.
Mhm.
But we decided, because of the uncertainty of this year, we decided just to keep it at a 5-year. So next year I'll be coming to you with an increased budget in my revaluation services.
Okay, so this year's, well, the 37,000 it's asked for this year and the 48 in the fiscal 21 budget, that's just for normal activity during the year. And then
Yes.
in every 5th year, which I guess is going to be next year, what's sort of the general order of measure that you'd be looking for at that point?
And then it goes up to about, well, each year it's gone down, because last year you can see in fiscal 19, we asked for 66,000. We reduced it to 48,000 for fiscal 21 because of Kerry. So we hired Kerry, but we reduced it down. This year we're reducing it more because we're increasing Kerry's hours. So next year I would suspect it would be around 60,000.
Right. And then my other question is on your unfilled position for the assessing tech. Has that been unfilled for a while? Has that presented problems? And then if it hasn't, do you need that position?
It has, well, what happened was the assistant assessor position was unfilled from the midsummer until Jackie was hired. So Jackie moved over to assistant assessor in December. So between Jackie and I, we were doing both jobs. We were doing 3 jobs: the assessing technician, the assistant assessor, and the assessor. I would say, yes, we definitely need another person to come in. It's been a little overwhelming, I would say, for the 2 of us to do all 3 jobs.
What does the tech do? What is the scope of the job?
So she processes, she does quite a bit. She processes all of the motor vehicle abatements. She answers most of the questions. She does all of the exemptions. We have close to 300 exemptions. She processes all of the deferrals. She's sort of the head clerk when we have people coming in. She answers all of the questions. What else does she do? She does a lot. She does the majority of the work, the majority of the clerical work in the office she does.
Thank you.
Other questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the public? Okay, Daveline, do you have a recommendation?
I do. So I recommend to the assessor's office salaries in the amount of $261,635. Expenses in the amount of $14,513. Reevaluation services in the amount of $37,190. And mapping services in the amount of $500 for a total budget of $313,838.
Thank you, Daveline. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think that brings us to Human Resources. And Brenda, is that you?
Yep, that's me. I'd like to introduce you to Lisa Campbell, who is the Human Resources Director and head of her two-person office here in Hingham. Go to page 37 of your budget book. And
Welcome, Lisa.
yeah, should we stick with having Lisa do sort of the introduction of her department and COVID impacts?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the primary function of human resources is to manage and supervise the town's human resources functions for all non-school employees. Examples of those functions would be assisting the personnel board in the administration of the personnel bylaws, assisting in the recruitment and selection process for positions the town's hiring for, helping with the collective bargaining process, offering training and development opportunities when it's needed, and assisting in the management of labor relations issues. Our major initiatives right now for this year are implementing the wage and classification study and implementing a quarterly training program in collaboration with the town's employee assistance program.
And how has COVID impacted the work of your department?
Oh, sorry, I forgot that part. So yeah, I mean, the COVID's impacted all of our departments, and my department's no different from anybody else's in that regard. We've had an increase in health and dental insurance enrollments due to qualifying events that have taken place. For example, you know, somebody who might not have insurance through the town right now, but as an employee might have insurance through a spouse who loses their job, so they lose their insurance, and that creates a qualifying event. When you have a qualifying event, it's a lot of work to try to, you know, get into contact with the person and, you know, gather all the paperwork that's required through the GIC. It's all time sensitive, so it all has to work very well together, and there's a lot of tracking down and you know, back and forth of people for that type of paperwork that the GIC requires. There's been an increase in life insurance inquiries, whether it's because somebody says, hey, you know what, this is a good time that I've just been reminded that I never changed my beneficiaries, or do I have life insurance, you know, and all the other questions that happen with that. Or if somebody unfortunately has to actually file a claim for the life insurance. So there's been a big uptick in just phone calls regarding the life insurance as well. We ended up conducting or transitioning to an electronic open enrollment primarily. I mean, there was still some paper transactions that were in place, but the GIC had a beta program that they were trying to implement right before COVID, and they quickly shifted it over and went live with it. Luckily, we were part of that beta test, so we had a little bit of knowledge about it ahead of time, which was nice. And our benefits coordinator really just stepped up and did an amazing job of just being able to utilize a system she was, you know, pretty unfamiliar with, and being able to get other people to utilize an electronic system, whether it was scanning things and uploading or just data entry into an electronic system that was secure. It was really great to see how well everything just kind of came together unexpectedly in such a difficult and unexpected time. We've had a 12.5% increase in leave of absences that we've had to manage through. Hopefully that's going to change when you know, the vaccine starts to get rolled out a little bit more so. We've assisted in the development and implementation of different COVID policies, COVID-related policies for return to work. And we created and maintained a Families First Coronavirus Response Act policy and process. We had to really kind of get our brains around what that whole act meant and what it meant for our staff, and how do we best implement it and make it user-friendly for the department heads so that when they had an employee who needed it, they were able to utilize it.
Okay, thanks. So the request for salaries for the Human Resource Department is $147,624. That is an increase of $12,427, or about a 9% increase from last year. That comes from two reasons. The first one of which is that the benefits coordinator, who had been working a 24-hour work week, was increased to 28 hours during this fiscal year. When apparently there was enough money somewhere in town hall that Tom Mayo said they could do that, because as you heard, there have been a zillion requests for work on her part. So that position is being requested to be continued at 28 hours per week, and both she and Lisa are due for step increases. So that is the source of that $12,247 increase. The expense budget request is for $3,650. That is also an increase of about 9%, mostly related to, you can see that office supplies has been kind of rolled up into one larger set of expenses. I gather there have been a large number of workplace signage requirements under COVID that have led to needing to expend those kinds of things that are continuing.
It was related to the labor law posters that this is the second time that the first time last year when we were putting the budget together, I don't think we really knew exactly what we were going to need and have a great picture of it. And labor law posters ended up costing a little bit more than what we anticipated.
So that is for a total request for this department of $151,274.
Questions from other members of the AdCom? I don't see any. Any questions from members of the public? Not sure we have any members of the public with us. So if there's no further discussion, Brenda, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I recommend that for the Human Resources Department, salaries of $147,624 and expenses of $3,650 for a total of $151,274.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
And I think that brings us to information technology. Is that Kristen and Steve?
And now actually that's me.
It's Daveline.
And Steve.
My writing is not centered.
It's okay. All right. Well, Steve is here with us. Steve Becker, the head of information technology. I think the first thing we just really should acknowledge is, thanks to him, the town of Hingham has continued to run even when people can't be in their offices and can't be interacting with one another's. And I think we just owe tremendous thanks to him and his staff. I know he thanks his staff as well, but it's not like you could plan in one sense for COVID, and to sort of go from a situation where everyone's in town hall to where no one's in town hall, and then people are in a variety of times in town hall. So I think we should acknowledge that. So.
Amen.
That's so. So in terms of what's going on, so I think, Steve, for the benefit of our new members, if you want to talk a little bit about what your department does.
I think we're on page 45.
Oh, page 45. I'm sorry. I have that written here, page 45. I just don't want to share it, apparently. So, in terms of the mission and services, and then I'll start talking about your budget after you do that.
Okay, sounds good. First, I want to apologize for the headset. My laptop's closed, so I'm a little distance away from where the microphone normally is. So this is the best way to go about it. But thanks for your time tonight. So our department, we're responsible for all 26 of the town departments, except for the light plant. We provide services to boards and committees as well. And this is across, we have 16 locations. Municipal buildings that data travels across the fiber on. We implement and monitor all the cybersecurity, antivirus, firewalls, web spam filters, We're responsible for over 300 user accounts, 36 servers, pretty much anything that touches the network, we get involved with. Responsible for the telephone system and over 750 telephones across all locations. We provide the procurement, configuration, deployment, maintenance of all technology, hardware, and software. Responsible for 3 websites, 11 social media accounts. In the year which we marked from October 1st, 2019 to September 30th, 2020, we had just under 2,800 service calls during that time, which is an average of about 11 a day. And that doesn't include the normal day-to-day tasks such as documentation, projects, maintenance on equipment, upgrades to servers, infrastructure equipment, public records requests, just a myriad of different tasks that we do. Impact of COVID-19. That was interesting. It's been an interesting year for sure. We really needed to kind of refocus our priorities. We had to ramp up, obviously, right off the bat. We had to get the remote workers up and running on the VPN. We went from approximately 52 VPN users to 117. We had to deploy equipment to them. And at the time, at the very beginning, obviously it was kind of like toilet paper. We couldn't get laptops, we couldn't get microphones, we couldn't get video cameras, we couldn't get anything. So we had to kind of go with what we had. Luckily, we had most of our desktops in the offices were the mini form factors with built-in wireless. So we could have the users take those home with a full-size monitor and keyboard and mouse. And Kate Richardson, Joe Lindsay, who were on my team, they were amazing during this time. They'd even be going out to people's homes to help them get set up and, if they ran into any issues. We also purchased, once they became available, we purchased 57 laptops and deployed those. We still have a few more to deploy, but the majority of them are out there. We've had to kind of implement Zoom, get that up and running for all the public meetings, the staff meetings, and then we've had to basically schedule meetings every week. So, if a committee needed a meeting, they'd send us a request and would set up the meeting. And then any videos, because of the limited space within the Zoom cloud, we have to archive those meetings to a local storage. We supported the COVID-19 incident management team. And what I've really disliked about the COVID situation is it's really made collaboration between Joe, Kate, and myself just very difficult. Normally, because our offices are close to each other, if somebody was able to resolve an issue, would sit around and discuss it, figure out how they approach the resolution of it, and so we'd learn from each other. And a lot of that has, we can still do it via Zoom. It's just not as easy, and just makes the whole process more difficult.
Thank you.
But,
so in terms of the budget, there is for salaries a decrease of about a little over $13,000. And that's despite the fact that you might remember last year when the GIS position was discussed, I don't think we knew for sure where it was going to be. There was some discussion, I think, of whether it should be in the Board of Selectmen's office or, well, it's going to be in IT. So you see that position, the GIS coordinator is a new position. You see what looks like a dramatic decrease due to Steve's retirement, which he assures us he is in fact still going to retire in August. I think the Board of Selectmen heard that differently. So there's so it looks like there's
We all heard that differently. That's not going to happen.
So there's about a $68,000 salary difference from this current year to next year. But you might remember that last year we funded about 3 months of overlap time so that the new person can be hired and Steve can be here to train them and make sure they know what they're doing. Or that he won't be able to retire, one or the other, however, whatever the situation is. So that's really the big difference, even though there is the new GIS coordinator position is in this one. So overall, that's about, as I said, it's a $13,411 decrease in salary. In terms of the expenses, it's about a 5.7% increase. It's $14,925 if my calculator was right. And that really, the basis for that, if you look, it's really the computer service agreements. And those vendor agreements, Steve tells me, raise about 5% each year. And in addition, there's additional expenses that relate to Zoom and also to the increased storage capacity of having all of these meetings on Zoom, which is also an part of the increase. So the expenses are a total of $276,714. And that's, are there questions?
Yeah, my question, I suppose, is, Steve, is any of this money capable of being recovered under the CARES Act?
The laptops that we purchased, which is under my capital budget, that will be reimbursed. And I believe Zoom has been submitted for reimbursement as well.
Including the storage, additional storage requirement?
The storage is actually part of that is due to Zoom videos, but the majority of it is just increased capacity for backup and the cloud backup as well. So because when the backup increases, the cloud backup also increases because we're basically replicating that backup out to the cloud. So we have to increase both capacities.
Kristen, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question on the IT upgrades. It's been so large over the past couple of years, and now it's just budgeted for nothing.
That's the capital budget.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
so that hasn't been filtered in yet. The process, for those of you who are new, once capital outlay decides what the capital budget is, then that populates these categories. So Steve has actually requested upgrades. They're just, there are no decisions. Since I'm one of the 2 capital outlay members, I should actually let Libby, who's far more experienced than me, but that's why there's not a number.
And we won't be taking recommendations on any capital budgets until we get to after the capital outlay review.
Yes, thank you.
Julie?
Thanks. So Steve, I just have a quick question under your key initiatives. The first bullet point is for the redundant fiber loop.
Correct.
Timeline, which is a warrant article that I worked on in 2019. So I was just curious about where that project stands and like, is there any timeline information for 2021?
Yes, that was supposed to get started this month, and it was supposed to finish up by June. However, I actually had contacted the vendor late last week, and due to the COVID situation, that the manufacturing of the fiber cabling is behind schedule. They're only at about 50% of their normal capacity. So there's going to be delays to that. The original delivery timeline was about 14 weeks on the fiber cabling, but that's getting pushed out even farther now. So an exact time frame we don't have. We just know it's delayed right now.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Libby?
So Steve, as far as that fiber project, is that something that a new head is going to, a new department head is going to be able to manage pretty easily? Or is the kind of institutional knowledge that you have of the system going to make it a real challenge for them?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. The vendor will be doing most, all the installation as far as running the cable on the poles, and they'll be bringing patch panels into the data center and the remote locations. And then it's just a matter of switching over the connections from the existing fiber to the new fiber.
Okay, great.
Andy?
Yes, as Devlin explained, we had budgeted money last year so that we could keep you on, Steve, after a new department head had been hired, so you could have some time overlapping to make sure the new person was familiar with the system.
Correct.
And so if you're planning to retire in August, that would be this fiscal, the 22 fiscal year, right?
That's
And
correct.
Are we not planning for that overlap again?
No, we are. We're actually going to be posting that job probably early February and hoping to have that person in place by April, May timeframe to
Okay.
overlap prior to my leaving.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's like a month overlap on this budget, I think.
Actually,
And any
we worked
money
into,
left over would be encumbered for next fiscal year too.
yep.
Sorry again, Sue?
Any money that we hadn't used for that overlap will be encumbered for FY22 to use.
Okay.
What was the final approved? Was it 2 months or 3 months? Because I thought somebody here today said 3, and Andy's telling me 3 from the beach, so 3. Okay.
I have 3. That's
Okay.
what I understood it to be.
Okay, great, thanks.
Victor, did you have a question, or are you adjusting your glasses?
Oh, I was adjusting my glasses, but I'll ask a question. For Evan.
There has to be a rule about that. If your hand isn't really up, you can't really ask a question.
Steve, could you remind us, what is your role vis-a-vis, your department's role vis-a-vis the school? I know you get a reimbursement from the school, but does the school have its own IT staff at all, or do you do everything?
No, the school has its own IT staff. However, we take care of, because the school administration is in our building, we take care of them as far as any issues. They're on our network. We provide any support to them if if their computer fails, we'll go over to attempt to fix it. If they need a new computer, that still comes out of the school budget. The school department would need to purchase it, but we take care of school administration, and we take care of the phone system across all the different school buildings.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the school department reimburses us for 20% of my salary, Kate Richardson's the system analyst salary, and Joe Lindsay, the network technician salary.
Yeah, if you look on the slide number 6, the school reimbursement for IT is almost $55,000. And there'll also be water reimbursement for the GIS coordinator of about $25,000. So the salaries would be $375,588 if not for those reimbursements.
Other questions or comments? Anything from members of the public? Not hearing any. Do you have a recommendation, David?
Sue has a question.
Oh, Sue.
I just wanted to let everybody know this is Steve Becker's last budget. So thank you, Steve, for all your help. From a department head, employee, and for all the budgets.
I thought we weren't letting him leave.
I know, and you know what? I'm chair of the retirement, so I can deny him.
I'm at Sue's mercy.
I think the Constitution doesn't allow us to keep him.
I know. It'll be hard to let him go, but
and he's got great. He's going to enjoy retirement. So.
He certainly is. Well deserved. Well deserved.
Especially after this year.
All right, so recommendations for the Information Technology Department. I recommend salaries of $295,439. That's after the reimbursements, obviously. Expenses of $276,714. And that's a total of $572,153.
Thank you, Steve. We'll miss you next year. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you
And-
very much. I just appreciate everybody's effort. I mean, you volunteer for this, you put in a lot of work. I don't know how you keep all the budgets straight, but thank you all for your effort. Appreciate it.
You
Thanks,
think we
Steve.
keep the budget straight?
We do our best.
Bob,
Drew
can I
Nickerson does that.
question here?
All right. Take care.
Thank you
everybody.
again, Steve.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
And now I think we're coming to one of the highlights of the evening where we have Senior Chief and Kristen.
So on page 234, is the veterans budget. Keith is going to talk to you a little bit about just the highlights from this year and any COVID effects. And Keith is the Veteran Service Officers and Veterans Agent.
Thank you, Kristen. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The mission of the Veterans Services Department is to administer veterans and their dependents under Mass General Law that qualify for this benefit. This benefit has been around almost since the Civil War. Massachusetts is the only state in the nation that provides financial and medical assistance to their veterans and dependents. We also provide or advocate for all of the town's veterans and dependents. Currently, those who need the most service that live 200% below the federal poverty line. We currently have about 20 clients who receive monthly benefits directly from our office. We also direct emergency financial assistance for veterans in need. We coordinate military ceremonies and events to recognize and honor Hingham veterans and citizens. Manage the townwide flag notification alert system for the town's 37 municipal flagpoles when the President of the United States and/or governor declares that the flag should be half-staffed. We liaise with the regional, state, and federal officials and programs and advocate for veterans resources, services, and benefits. Currently, the office maintains a case management load of 224 veterans that receive federal awards. Their compensation is just about south of $500,000, and each of those veterans per person, it averages out to be about $2,200 a person. That brings that money back, those federal dollars back into Hingham's economy. We manage the town's veterans in need and the veterans benefit funds. Manage the Valor Act tax work-off program. Currently, we're staffed at 50%. We support the Commander Paul Anderson Home for Veterans that's located on Fort Hill Street. We manage the town's Consolidated Flag Purchase Program. Prior to that initiative, all the departments would buy their U.S. flags at all different vendors at all different prices. Now we've, over the last 10 plus years, been able to consolidate that, get more bang for our buck, buy in bulk, shipping charges are way down. And as you can imagine, some of the big ticket riders on that are the schools, fire department, et cetera, that have multiple buildings in town. We produce the town's military ceremonies live and now virtually. So that was a little bit different this year. We managed the Hank Mod Service Above Self Veteran of the Year Award. This year's award recipient is Mr. Tom Burbank. That announcement was made annually, usually historically on Veterans Day. We serve as the military liaison to the Hingham High School Veterans Appreciation Club. Currently has about 40 members. That's grown over the last 7 years to be quite an asset to my office, to the public at large. And I know that the veterans truly appreciate the ability to interact with students. Whenever we can bridge that gap and put a student with someone, say, from the greatest generation, that's something that we're not going to get out of a book. So that's a great thing to be involved in as well. As I mentioned, the Commonwealth is also a certified, this job has to be certified. It's a 3-year certification process. So we meet quarterly and annually with the state and the county to provide training that keeps us compliant. There's a testing process every 3 years. And in order to be a veteran service officer now within the Commonwealth, you must be certified. So that's new as of the last 3 years. The COVID impacts, unfortunately, veterans and surviving spouses are unable to access the office. Most of those people that I service need assistance with receipts and monthly benefit checks due to their inability to navigate online or PC functions. Most are geriatric, and this has initially caused this has caused in a higher man hours to solve. There's been more processes involved to get those invoices back and forth. Phone initially increased drastically, I'd say from spring to summer. And now where we are deep into the winter, the phones are virtually nothing. Nothing's ringing. So I believe everybody's sort of hunkered down. And again, these are people that are our most vulnerable. We had to suspend in-person intake interviews for all federal and state claims, so that I mentioned before that, and I still manage those 224 federal claims. I haven't really had any new claims come in because most of that traffic was walk-in or foot traffic. We implemented the Virtual Veterans Council and GAR trustees with Zoom. I know Steve was just mentioning those Zoom accounts. Those were, that word was not even on our radar prior to this year. So our ability to get those groups up and running was great as well. And as you know, we've mandated a bi-weekly working group at Town Hall where one group works A group, one group works B group, but yet the Town Hall is still not open to the public. And with that said, I know I see Sue here and Steve just left. All of the town departments, I think, were pressed into increased activity. And it seemed like every department pitched in. We found a way to make it work, I guess you could say. A lot of it was challenging, but it seemed that the unit, the team there at Town Hall is very cohesive, and we were able to quickly get up and running. So that was a plus.
Okay.
Kristen?
Thanks, Keith. I just want to thank you for your services.
Thank you.
Start. So starting with the veterans budget, it's a level funded budget. Only increase was $600 longevity increase for Keith. So the total budget for this year, like I said, only went up $600 and total budget was $109,522. For the veteran services expenses, all the expenses remain the same. Repairs and maintenance grounds only increased by $832. Just due to regular maintenance and flagpole hardware repairs that they need to do for this year. And then the bottom set, so total expenses this year, again, up $832 to a total of $8,610. The last section on the bottom is the veteran services benefits. And you can see actually it went down pretty significantly this year from $196,946 down to $171,796. So there's three pieces that make up the benefit section. There's the ordinary allowances, which is, if you go to page 243, it actually outlines the detail there for the major items for the ordinary benefits, which is the financial aid, and then the medical and supply benefits went down significantly. And when I talked to Keith, I just asked, why that went down so much. And, he pointed out that 80% of the clients are senior citizens. So, attrition of life over the past year has decreased. But again, these numbers are best estimates at this point, as throughout the whole year, they can get new people that are coming on and having people that are coming off the benefits. So there's no really way to estimate what these amounts would be exactly. So these are just best estimates. But like Keith mentioned before, 75% of these benefits do get reimbursed from the state, which goes back into the fund balance when they get returned. And that small amount at the bottom, the $2,500, is flags for memorials. So the overall veteran services budget decreased from 196,946 to the 171,796. So total budget was down 23,720, which was down 8% for FY22. Anyone has any questions?
Questions or comments from other members of the AdCom? Well, you answered my question. You asked the question I was going to ask Kristen. I wonder if, Keith, do you think that it's going to be an up and down thing on veterans benefits? Or is that a trend that we're likely to see into the future?
So the benefits that we provide now usually couple with someone's means. So if I guess we were to continue in the path that we're currently on, yes, that could cause an increase, because without employment, that's where we as the Commonwealth stepped forward, like I said, and lead the nation, and to provide benefits that are separate from, like, say, a natural unemployment that could run out. This benefit, as long as you follow the rules, and there are many, they're all covered under the Code of Mass Regulations 108. If you're looking for a companion at night and you can't sleep, I would pick up that volume and look through there. That's kind of the Bible, if you will, of how we pay, what we pay, and why we pay it, as long as you follow those rules. So I could see that it's possible. Like Kristen said, that we try to give it, we use historical data, like we try to use what our run rate is now. I try to look at the attrition rate. Believe it or not, I have to kind of guess, health-wise, who's with us now, who may not be with us the following year. We always add in for a minimum of 2 new clients a year. So those may be new, meaning either just receiving a benefit or have lost a job and are now out of unemployment. They could turn to us. Usually someone who's on unemployment would not be able to receive financial assistance, but they would be able to receive medical. So medical, believe it or not, is the biggest piece of this. And the medical insurance part, it seems to be an ever increasing component. Annually, those costs rise 15 to 20% or anywhere there in between. So we try to do our best to manage that and kind of use a crystal ball, if you will, and decide, the most aged among us usually use that resource the most. Younger folks that are on benefits are transitional at best. They're looking for work. They find a job. They use the program for what it is, which is based as a transitional program. But once those veterans receive or reach the age of 65 or 70 and stop working, we pretty much own them for the remainder of their life. So it can get quite costly if the medical increases.
Other questions or comments? Any members of the public? I'm not hearing anything. Kristen, do you have a recommendation?
I do. I recommend for veteran services, salaries in the amount of $109,522, expenses in the amount of $8,610, and service benefits in the amount of $171,796 for a total budget of $289,928.
Thank you both, but don't go away.
Yeah.
You're coming up next.
So if everyone can turn to page 34 now. And we can go over the Grand Army Hall. And just for a summary, the Grand Army Hall is used by veterans for meetings and events, and it also houses historic memorabilia. And after talking to Keith, the museum, the Army Hall is actually in the process of getting museum status right now. So some of the increases that we'll go over in expenses are due to that. So for the first expense is the repairs and maintenance of so all of these are pretty small expenses. based on from the previous year. So for the utilities, I had just basically asked how the utilities were with if the building was not in use right now, but it actually is in use. Keith is working there part-time. And as I mentioned before, as it's becoming museum status, all the heat has to be kept at a certain level to maintain certain artifacts right now. So a lot of these utilities will not go down even if the building isn't in full use at this time. So for repairs and maintenance for the building, it went up $469 to $9,839. Electric went up $180 to $3,783. Gas went up $148 to $3,102. Water went down $16 to $597. Telephone went up $36 to $1,566, and other supplies remain the same. So for a total budget of $19,692. If anyone has any questions on those.
Keith, did you want to add anything?
For those who may not know, this 132-year-old building dates back to the Civil War. Those men who left Hingham to fight at the Potomac came home after the war, shortly thereafter erected this building as a meeting place. So this is really your precursor to your more widely known groups like your American Legion and your VFW and your AMVETS. This was the first in the nation. I know Kristen mentioned several groups, including the Boy Scouts, meet here. The 50 Flags program, that campaign that helps fund our 4th of July parade, they store those flags here. Militia has all their equipment here, and the local fraternal organizations, DAV, Legion, and VFW, they also meet here. And annually we host, except for this year, so that would be a COVID issue, we host the Hingham High School sophomore class. So for the last 11 years, every sophomore who's gone through Hingham High School have passed through these doors. They've spent the day at the hall. I think it's like a double period. All the students come, well over 300 and some odd students, and the faculty, they've never been in this building. A lot of them go by, walk here to school, take a bus, never been in. And it's great to have veterans here that are able to tell a story, and they get to meet and see and touch the artifacts that date. We have some to the Revolution all the way to today. And this, of course, is managed, if you will, by the Board of Selectmen, who appoint the 3-member Board of Trustees. So I act as their employee, so to speak, and professional employee to produce their budget and pass the accounts payable or receivable, if any, through my office, which seems to be an easy play for the Veterans Department.
Julie, you had a question?
Yeah, sorry. Keith, it's an old building, right? So I see in capital projects in the past, there's been roof and septic and parking lot. Do you have requests for capital for this year, or do you have requests that you think like, okay, coming down the road in a couple of years, we're going to need to do whatever?
Yeah. So we took advantage of those meetings. We did have some insight walkarounds as well here. I felt that the board should actually come here and look. And yes, we have had some capital. Hopefully, maybe Libby could tell me where that stands while I see her there. But we did ask for, there's something going on off the top of my head. I didn't bring that with me, but there's windows. There's the Pond Street side egress has a wooden staircase. So that's beginning to rot, show signs of wear. I mentioned the windows, and there was one other thing. I can't recall what it was, but I think it was the outside. The exterior of the building is starting to show its age. So there's a lot of rotted wood that needs to be, go through historical, through the commission, et cetera. And to speak to that, to have that repaired is quite expensive, to say the least. So I know they had taken a good look at it. I told them that the capital is a 5-year type of look ahead, and that if they're seeing that now, that the boards are starting to get loose on the stairs, for instance, you need to bring that to attention now, because it could be up to 5 years from now before they see that funding. So those are the 3 things that I can think of off the top of my head, mostly exterior and windows.
And I would just add, Julie, when they met before capital outlay, I think one of the things we encourage them is to also look at potentially CPC funds for some of these projects, because as we know, the capital dollars are stretched further and further every year, and there's more and more requests that we have to be judicious in how we allocate that money. So we did encourage them to consider that, because certainly, you know, that's what that money really is there for. I can't think of a better candidate for it than GAR Hall. Keith, I just wanted to ask you, I know you've mentioned in previous years, how many of these kind of buildings are there around the state? I remember it being like a shockingly low.
Yeah, so at one time, the Commonwealth boasted over more than 200 of these buildings throughout the Commonwealth, and currently we're at 6. So we're one of 6 remaining buildings that can still be used, that are intact. I know the closest to us, and if you went in there, you know, is Situate and Rockland. They have, and there's one that's on a website. If you Google it, it's somewhere, I want to say in Lynn. It's definitely on the North Shore, but they have reached that museum status. So they're an actual museum with bonding or whatever goes with that, National Historic Register, etc. Fantastic looking place, but yeah, one of 6.
And Keith, I was just going to ask you, just brought up my other question, which is, what is involved with getting that museum classification? Is it a lengthy process? Is it, how involved?
We had a woman come up 2 summers ago from the federal government to look it over. She made extensive recommendations, which we moved towards. I think Julie mentioned Kristen mentioned the climate control. So humidity protection, climate control year round, which had us put in the gas forced air system gas. There were certain shades that had to be put in here to block sunblock, to keep the artifacts from being ruined, believe it or not, from sunlight. A lot of the posters and or paintings and pictures had to be put in some special glass. So all of those things we're starting to do. Alarm system, we just finished that up this year. So it's just like slowly piecemeal moving its way towards the goal line.
So you have to complete those items you need to do, and then at that point, then do you apply? And if so, how, like, if that's a process, then how long does it take to find out if you've been accepted or not?
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that, but it is exactly what you mentioned. You would have them come back, visit. There's like a checklist that they have. It's like it's a federal conservator. And at the time, we just did this on a whim. She was in Hull for some reason, and we reached out to her and asked her to come by here, and she kind of did it like, not off the books, I shouldn't say that, but we weren't really scheduled to do it. So when we bring her back next time, we were hoping to hit a lot of those benchmarks that we feel we've already achieved.
Great.
Keith, will the status as a museum give you access to grants or federal historic preservation funds or that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Libby was saying, even though, so we're a town-owned building, so right now it's like we have to almost turn to capital for those things. If we turn the corner and become something like on the National Register, then there's a whole array of other grant process that we could take advantage of. And one of the things I failed to mention was we had to be open. So that was a big hit for us, COVID. We man this building the first and third Saturday of every month from 10 to 2 with members of the Valor Act. So veterans working here, they have you sign the log. They kind of tell you a little bit about the place, but they're not really like a curator or anything. It's a self-guided type tour, and it's for you to enjoy and look at. But we get that for free. The Valor Act people get to take that off their property tax. If they work over 125 hours, they get up to a $1,500 tax exemption. seen on the fourth quarter of their taxes. So we're getting that for free in a way, and we're open. That was the other piece. We were never open before 10 years ago. The building sort of was here, but we weren't really open. I think Sue came here with AdCom one time. Sue, we had an AdCom night at GAR Hall. It was a little breezy that night.
It's a little chilly.
Yeah, before the climate control. So we're moving along, but I think we're going in the right path. That's for sure. And this place is a hidden gem. This is I would put this up there right now with the Benjamin Lincoln House, Old Ordinary, Old Derby, what we call the new historic center. This is a treasure. This is a treasure. And as was pointed out, 1 of 6 remaining. So we should really be vested to keep it in this condition. Took a long time to get like this.
Other questions, comments? Any members of the public? Okay, Kristen, do you have a recommendation?
I recommend for Grand Army Hall expenses in the amount of $19,692 for a total budget of $19,692.
Thank you both, but hang with us, Keith, because you got the hat trick tonight.
Yeah.
So our page 244 is our last budget, which is celebrations. And these are basically ceremonial events that recognize and pay tribute to veterans in Hingham. So the first line item is for the 4th of July, and this is actually first responder detail. It remained the same from last year. Also, this was not utilized last year, so it went back to the general fund. And along with these other expenses, some of them we really can't predict this year with COVID, what will actually take place and what won't. But a lot of the expenses are for flags and wreaths that are put on all the memorials for any of these events. So for Memorial Day, it was an increase of $178 to $9,067. Veterans Day, an increase of $34 to $1,742. And Battle of Grape Island, an increase of $280 to $2,548 for a total increase of 2.9% for the budget of $492.
Do you want to add anything, Keith?
Sure. Like Kristen mentioned, that just the direct oversight we have is a portion of that excludes the July 4th responder detail. And some of these things, like in accordance with Mass General Law, we're responsible to do. So the floral plantings and the placing of the wreaths, that's called what was called decorating. So that's required by law to do. The town has 21 military and veteran memorials that we must decorate. And the money that we also have, we use for funds to procure and replace the metal grave markers. We call them, those are the stand-up. It's on a pole. You see it has a medallion, usually of the war, World War I, World War II, Korea, etc. Then the flag goes in there, and we find that we get more bang for our buck by having that grave marker, that flag tender there, because if you just stick the flag directly into the ground, which is really, that's all that's required by law, the rot that happens is almost inevitable. The replacement cost goes up exponentially because of that. So for a small investment up front, by providing that metal grave marker, we save on the back end with the flags that are required by law. And some of the COVID-19 things that were mentioned. Some of the ceremonies that weren't mentioned, National Peace Officers Memorial Day, that was reduced capacity. We just had a few veterans there, and the police force. We had a Memorial Day and Veterans Day this year, which was virtually produced with the help of our Harbor Media, who are extraordinary in their own right. We're so fortunate to have them. Battle of Grape Island was completely canceled, as was the 4th of July parade. POW MIA National Recognition Day was still held and will continue to be held until there's a full accountability. We this year, after a 3-year plan, moved our monument location and flagpole new to the center of Whitney Wharf because of the Harbor Development Committee's insight into where our memorial was. There was 17 to 18 feet of that memorial that would have to be taken for the new revetment wall. So we would have had to move it closer to 3A, which it's already problematic where it was. To be closer to 3A would be worse. It wouldn't be as a peaceful spot as we need. As many of us know, in 2016, 5 years ago, we lost Corporal Christopher Orlando. He was tragically killed in a helicopter training accident over the Hawaiian Islands. What may not be known is only 9 of those Marines were recovered. Christopher remains missing in action and is listed as lost at sea. So it is imperative that we continue to have that recognition day. It's usually the third Friday in September. It's an annual national event, actually. And the Seaman L. Foss Recognition Day was canceled as well. Not that we didn't want to do it, but as, I don't know if you would call it luck, but as luck would have it, the ferry terminal was closed. So because of COVID, so we couldn't actually access our monument, our bust and our plaque where we lay the wreath and have the ceremony. We were going to just do it outside, but changed our mind. And for many years, we've been going here now instead of going to his gravesite at Fort Hill Cemetery because the weather is it's just too awful. But I thought I'd add that in because like everything else, COVID it seems to affect every aspect of our community.
Also, just to add in that Keith had explained to me too, that the metal markers that he mentioned, the amount that we have has been steadily increasing over the years due to the Korean and war veterans that are now earning those plaques. So every year those amounts are increasing.
Andy?
Yes, Senior Chief, you mentioned Corporal Christopher Orlando, and there is a bench at Nantasket in his honor that just up the road from the Straley Manor. The flagpole was sort of snapped in half this year, and it's still being used. I mean, the flag, the American flag and a Marine flag are still flown there, but could you talk to the people in Hull about getting that repaired?
Yeah, so that was given to them by, that land is actually owned by the state. So DCR, many may not know that Mrs. Orlando was actually a Massachusetts state trooper before she retired. And I think she was part of that area or that district. So that was given to her specifically. That monument was placed there, that bench and all of the things, including the flagpole, were gifted, if you will. So yeah, they knew about it. Sometimes the flags, if I notice we have extra money in Veterans Day. I think I also told Kristen that we usually zero balance out that by purchasing flags that we need for some of those monuments now that have popped up that weren't normally funded. And even though that's in Hull, I have it on good authority that Marine Corps flag finds its way over to the Hingham shipyard, which eventually gets to Hull. So, so yeah, we do take care of that in our own little way, but yeah, they're aware of that and they're just looking for a suitable replacement.
Victor, did you have a question?
Thank you.
Yes, Keith, on the various ceremonies that you were describing, I mean, most of them do not have a budget line item. Do they not have any expenses?
No, so they come out of like I said, I try to get more bang for the buck. I use R&M grounds from Veteran Services. I'll use Veterans Day, Memorial Day to offset those the costs, if any, if we have if you were to think of it as an overrun, so that way we don't have any And I know Sue block your ears, reserve fund transfers. So I've been here over a decade, as was said by Kristen in the two previous budgets, because I've got my longevity pay, and I can say with a lot of help, I've been able to stay in the black for those 10 years. And I think prior to that, this budget has always historically been in the red. So we're able to do more with what we have by putting our mind to it, I guess, and having people like you as well that are able to craft all the budgets together and get everybody what they need. I think what Kristen mentioned too, that 75% that gets returned, we really kind of overlooked that. So I think it was last year, and Sue could probably give me the exact number off the top of her head. She's very good at that. But I know we got well over $100,000 last year returned from the state due to our timely input of our paperwork for that 75% return and that certification that I mentioned. If you don't have that certification or that certification lapses, the state doesn't necessarily give you the full 75 after then. It becomes a penalty, and they give you only 50%. So it becomes a 50-50 deal at that time. So those are two things that we have going in our favor that help save that money, as well as being, fiduciarily responsible. I think just our budget alone, without the 75%, brought back somewhere around 11,000, I think, Sue. So it's that money that I usually let her know well in advance, right before spring, hey, you get this coming back. And I usually see a little smile on her face, and great. She knows she needs that somewhere else. I don't know it, but she does. And it's always pleasant to see her smile. So
We want to keep her smiling.
yes.
Any other questions?
Just one additional question. I noticed on Memorial Day, actual expended in 2020, it was 3,700. And I guess I was wondering why the big jump up. I mean, was 2020 unusual for some reason?
So fiscal year 2020 would have been May. It would have been in the height of it was when we canceled the Memorial Day ceremony altogether. So
oh, you're right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I got my years mixed up. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the never mind. I was thinking of a prior year. Yep.
Yeah, the luncheon and some of the consumables that go with that were not expended.
Yeah. No, I understand. I just had the wrong year.
Anyone else? Any members of the public? Last recommendation, Kristen.
I recommend for celebrations, expenses in the amount of 17,107 for a total budget of 17,107.
Thanks, Senior Chief. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much, Chairman, members of the board. Have a good night.
All right. And now we go back to Sue's budget so she can smile even more. I think we're starting with Town Accountant. Is that you, Andy?
Indeed it is. I'd like to introduce you all to Sue Nickerson.
Gee, hi, everybody. Gee, I lost my audience too.
Yeah. Perhaps, Sue, you could, the budget, by the way, is on page 76 of your notebooks. And Sue, maybe you could just quickly walk us through the mission and services for your department as set forth on pages 79 and 80 in our books, and then talk a little bit about the key initiatives on page 81 and the COVID-19 impacts.
Sure.
Then we can talk about the budget.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, the Town Accountant's Office manages weekly payroll and accounts payable warrants for the town, the school, and for SHREC, which is the South Shore Regional Emergency Communication Center. what we do for the school is the school inputs their own payroll and their own invoices. We take it from there, we run their checks, we run their deductions, and we file their quarterlies. We also coordinate yearly with the audit for the town. I'm the liaison to the audit committee. We actually, just before this meeting, finalized our FY20 financial statements, which we will be submitting to the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday. We prepare and submit yearly comprehensive annual financial report. We assist in the preparation of the town's annual budget. Me and my staff work closely with the advisory committee. We manage workers' comp and unemployment, and the retirement office and all that goes with it is in my office. For benchmarks, the IRS, we do the W-2s, the 1099s. We do for the Department of Revenue, we do the tax recap, certify free cash, Schedule A, quarterly taxes, and we submit new employees to DOR. We do the quarterly wages for unemployment. Our CAFR has now won 24 consecutive years with 2019. When we submit 2020, that will be our 25th consecutive award. Only 3 Mass municipalities have more awards than Hingham. And out of 351 municipalities, only 45 submit for the Achievement Award. For retirement, PERAC is the authority on Massachusetts pension systems. We do an annual financial statement. We retire, and we put in new employees. We do transfers and withdrawals when employees leave Hingham and go elsewhere. Key initiatives to develop and implement the FY20 financial management plan due to pandemic financial uncertainty.
Excuse me, Sue, for interrupting. Yeah. Do our new members know what the financial management plan was?
Yeah, because we have our updates with the advisory committee. They do, right, Bob?
Yes, and everyone was directed to the financial management plan as one of the documents to pay some attention to before we started this AdCom year. So
right, and we don't need to drain that tonight, though.
No.
Grumpy woke up, Sue.
He's going to be my advocate for tonight, I'll tell you. My department coordinates the CARE Act reimbursements for COVID-19 expenses. I will let you know it is a daunting task because Plymouth Care has to have copies of every single invoice, every single check register, every single warrant. So it is an awful lot of work. We assist with the debt issuance for the water system acquisition and maintain the triple rated credit rating, long-term capital planning. We support the advisory committee and the audit committee, implement additional paperless processes, and Munis upgrades and improvements. Munis is the municipality's software system for financials. The COVID-19 impacts, coordinate multiple municipal and school care acts reimbursements totaling over $3 million by the time we get through with all of this. The monthly FY21 revenue and expenditure analysis with the forecast group, investigated endless fraudulent unemployment claims, suspended. The bad part about COVID was we had to suspend in-person consultation for retirees and new and existing employees. Just like he said, you know, the retirees love to come in. They don't, a lot of them don't have computers. They don't know what Zoom means. Phone calls, emails, sometimes get a little confusing for the retiree. And I manage remote meetings via Zoom for advisory, audit, and retirement board. Anybody have any questions? I'm tired.
No questions.
Nancy has a question.
Yeah, so I just had a question about the 3 million in reimbursements. Is that everything we've submitted?
No, that's everything we will be submitting by the time it's all done.
So you're expecting 100% reimbursement?
Well, the town wants me to. whether I would think with schools, especially renting St. Jerome's, we probably will hit about the 3 million.
Okay. Perfect.
Since they extended it out until December 31st of 2021, that means anything we use this year will be reimbursable.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Directing your attention then to page 76, which is the budget request. The department request for salaries this year is $292,016, which is 11,000 or a 3.8% increase over last year. This all relates to contractual and salary and wage classification plan increases. The expense budget is $11,355, which is the same as last year. The auditing services, Clifton Larson Allen is the town's auditor, and their fees are $71,500, which is the same as they were last year. You may recall that they increased from fiscal year 20 to 21 because the scope of the audit changed. There were 2 changes in the government standard bureaus, the government standards, accounting standards with regard to pensions and OPEB. Is that right, Sue?
That is correct.
So that explains why the auditors increased their fees. And the total, therefore, of the requested budget for the accountant's office is $374,871.
And one thing I would like to add is the South Shore Regional Emergency Communication Center also, we bill them $12,000 to do their financials per year.
Robbery.
And are those numbers you just read, Andy, are those your recommendations?
Those are my recommendations.
All right, thank you. And I think that brings us to reserve fund, I believe, is Victor.
Yes, reserve funds on page 64. This is money set aside every year to be allocated for emergency or unexpected expenses, which would have to be approved by both the Board of Selectmen and Advisory. Saves the cost basically of calling a special town meeting if we had had to come up with emergency expenses. Frequent, but by no means our only uses for this fund are legal, snow and ice, police overtime, but it could be from any department. Our financial policy says we should allocate approximately 0.75% of the operating budget to the reserve fund. The operating budget's Articles 4, 5, and 6, less employee benefits, debt service, and user rates, departments that are funded from, from users. So it's a mechanical formula that Sue applies. She actually applies it to the prior year's, the existing year's operating budget, because we don't know what the next year is going to be. So the operating budget here that we're using for fiscal 21 is $88,610,342. And I believe this is exactly 0.75%, comes up with the figure of $664,578. Couple of comments on our chart. So you'll note that actual expended in 2020 is shown as 0. So that doesn't mean that nothing was expended. The money from the reserve fund, of course, if it gets used, gets transferred to different departmental budgets as appropriate. And then the allocations or the expenditures are shown from that department. Fiscal 19, you're seeing a negative number for actual expended, and that represents an insurance recovery that occurred after the transfer out of other monies. And that was insurance recovery for damage to a harbor master vehicle. So again, the requested amount, is the 664,578, and I will ask if there are any questions.
I don't see any.
Okay.
So your recommendation?
My recommendation is that we allocate $664,578.
Thanks, Victor. Thanks, Sue. Evan, you're in the spotlight.
All right, we're going to save the most interesting and negotiable for last year or Sue, right? So we're next going to do debt service. I'm going to start with principal, which is on page 299 of your budget binders. These budgets are what I like to call the non-negotiables. So we can talk about them all night long, but they're not going to change. What I'm going to do.
Do you have a recommendation?
I do have a recommendation. But before I make a recommendation on principle, though, I do want to show that there is, you'll see it goes down about almost $2 million because the MSBA loan for the high school renovations years ago is finally coming off in this next fiscal year, which is the explanations for that line item, which if you look, it's Article 18 SCH, that's the high school is coming off. All the rest of these are principal payments under debt service.
Anything you want to add, Sue?
Yeah, just to expand upon Evan's, the debt service is coming off for the high school, but so isn't the MSBA money that comes into the general fund. So our expenses are going down by the 1.79 by $1.8 million, but our revenue is also coming down by $1.7 million because we will not be getting the MSBA money in June. Does anybody have any questions on the principal? The next couple of pages, you have the chart for FY22. It's divided into excluded and non-excluded debt and principal and interest.
Yep.
And so when we heard, for example, at the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen about increasing debt capacity, is this indicative of that additional debt capacity because our debt service is going down?
It would, yes, but so isn't our revenue.
Right.
Okay. Any other
The
questions?
revenue going down, the MSBA is not paying for everything, right? So the revenue is going down not as much as the debt service is going down.
The MSBA was $1.7 million, and the debt is 1.8.
Yeah, or 1.8.
Other questions?
Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Julie, this is your budget. You don't get to ask questions.
I'm part of the memory crew, but I just wanted to pitch in one little tiny bit. It's not a question.
Okay.
About page 301 is the unused non-excluded debt capacity, which Sue, I don't know if you want to jump in and explain to people who are not familiar with this category.
I will. I didn't know if everyone wanted to do interest also, or.
Yeah, I just want to do interest first, Julie. I was going to take it.
I'm sorry, I got ahead.
No, that's good though. So Bob, do you want me to recommend it on page 299, or do you want me to talk about interest, which is on page 300?
I'll just go to interest for now then.
No, why don't you,
Recommend.
well, isn't the interest part of the debt service?
Yeah,
budget?
debt service is one lump sum. It's just broken out this way.
Right.
Okay, well, why don't you give us the explanation on the interest then, and then you can make your recommendation.
Okay, well, on page 300 is the interest. There's really nothing of note here. Unless you wanted to point to this. There's a whole bunch of line items here that we couldn't possibly talk about for very long. They are debt obligations. Sue, I do remember from our discussion, you said there was one number that was incorrect. But you
It's,
fixed it.
yeah, I corrected it. The munis sheets were right. It was the Excel spreadsheet that was incorrect, but I hope you get the corrected one.
Okay.
Interest is basically what interest we have on the debt at that point in time. We cannot refund anything prior to 10 years. So when one of the debts are 10 years old, our financial advisors will end up calling us and saying, you know, you would get a much better interest rate if we refund. So sometimes we do that. We just did it a couple of years ago. So unfortunately, I do not think there are any refunding opportunities yet. But the last page of unused non-excluded debt capacity. What this is, in 2017, our then town administrator,
Page 302.
thank you, decided that we were going to level fund non-excluded debt. And when debt came off our schedule, we would put that amount, that variance amount, into what is called unused non-excluded debt capacity. And what we would do, we would not spend it. We would let it fall to fund balance at the end of the year. And then we would reserve that each and every year to build out capacity for when we go out to debt or a non-excluded debt, we could use this budget to offset. Did I lose everybody?
No.
Oh, awesome.
And explain the difference between excluded and non-excluded debt.
Non-excluded debt is debt that is above and beyond Prop 2.5. It is voted at town meeting and then at the ballot. This will increase your taxes in perpetuity until the debt is paid. Non-excluded debt is within the budget.
And non-excluded debt really is just included debt.
Yes.
Hey, Sue, this is
The
Dave.
double negative.
Just curious on the non-excluded debt capacity. Why is the actual expended in 19 and 20 zero? Didn't we accrue some in those years? Or not?
Well, we didn't expend it. It went to the bottom line.
But it was still a line item in the budget, wasn't it? Under that heading?
It was, but if you don't use it, there's nothing expended. It would fall to the bottom line.
But it kind of grew this asset that we're calling, you know, unexcluded debt capacity. That's a restricted fund balance account, right?
Yes, yes, and you will see how much it's grown when you get my coveted
That's the fund balance.
fund balance memo.
I can't wait. No, I was just curious. So that, I mean, I hear you in the sense that it wasn't expended, but in a way it was, right? Because it was set aside into that account. It wasn't like we didn't use it. We just kind of sequestered it. I mean, we don't have to go into this, but sorry.
Well, no, if you look at principal and look at the expended, $5.8 million. We spent $5.8 million. We didn't spend any of the unused debt capacity because we didn't expend it. What happens when you don't expend it, it falls to the bottom line.
Meaning
So there
fund balance. Is that right?
What, Victor?
You mean when you say it falls to the bottom line, you mean to fund balance?
Yes.
Okay, well then let me ask the question in reverse. When we show 196,000 in an expenditure for FY22, isn't that 196, 262 going to go into that fund balance restricted account too?
At the end of FY '22, yes.
And
So it's
Sue, that
budgeted,
is-
but then it
This is just the
vanishes?
budget.
It's
This is just
budgeted
the
but
budget.
not used.
It's budgeted but not used.
So in a sense, that would be, I guess, Dave, just to pick up what you're saying, I'm trying to clarify for myself too. So then what we're saying, Sue, and this is a question, is that 196 then going to be part of our kind of Article 6, or when we look at the budget? When we
Yes,
get the forecast?
yes.
So the 196 will be on there, but at the
Well,
end
the
of the year,
196 will be added to principal and interest to come up with the debt service budget line item.
and if not used, then again, it's budgeted, but then we'll see it in Article 6, but then it will just fall off if it, like you said, if we don't use it.
Yes. 19 and 20 are actual expended. 21 and 22 are budget requested. There is a big difference in between what is the budget and what has been expended.
I understand, Sue. Sorry, I get it. So the distinction you're making is that it's one thing to actually send a check for principal and interest to a note holder. It's another thing to, we're using the money, if you will, in the sense that we're setting it aside.
Right.
But you're right. So what it really shows is that, yes, it hits the bottom line. But when you say that, what you really mean is that it hits a subset of the bottom line, which is this. It's not truly a return. It's a restricted fund balance account that's dollar for dollar what we budget.
Exactly.
When we have to
Bingo.
use it for
Sorry.
a very specific purpose, right?
Yes.
No, understood. I was just confused
No.
that we didn't track it in the historical expenditures, but I guess I get my head around it now. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And was that the
Okay.
account that Eric Haskell so creatively
Yes,
looked
that's
to?
what Julie was going to just say. But yes,
Okay.
And I
There's
just
an
want to say
animal
real
attacking
quick-
you, Sue. I don't know. if you see
I
that.
know, it's getting late.
Oh, okay.
And I just wanted to say real quick for the new people, because I know this whole excluded, non-excluded can seem complicated, but the way I always describe it to people is if it's, as Evan said, if it's non-excluded, that means it's included. So if it's
Right.
non-excluded and included, it's included in Article 6. If it's which means it's all part of the 5-year, we'll see a forecast. If it's excluded, then it's outside of that and it's separate. And so that's just maybe hopefully a little easier way to think about it if you're trying to understand it.
Any further questions or comments? Because Evan's chomping at the bit to make his recommendation.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend total debt service principal for fiscal year 22 budget of $4,122,877. At the same time, I'm also going to make a total interest recommendation on the debt service for fiscal year 2022 of $1,584,499.
So what's the total?
Now, Julie,
request?
you may have your way with page 301.
And don't forget unused debt capacity.
That's right. That's what I'm, Julie
Oh,
Bueller.
Sorry, what were you asking?
No, I was just saying, you're more than welcome to get into page 301 now, the unused debt capacity.
Oh, we kind of already talked about it. Dave had some questions. We talked about what will happen to this money if we, at the end of fiscal year 22, if we don't find a way to use it. It's just being earmarked for now. So
Correct.
We're just looking for a recommendation, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but the recommendation on the unused non-excluded debt capacity, if it's not confusing enough, is $196,262. But the point that Julie was making, which I think I just fully picked up after Dave asked his question, was if in this fiscal year the budget comes up $175,000 short, we could potentially use this line item as a bridge the way Eric did, was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last.
To balance the budget.
last year.
Yeah.
Last year.
Okay.
Okay, thank you
And
both.
just-
And I think that brings us to employee benefits.
Sue, what were you going to say in the end there?
Oh, I was just going to say, in total, debt service is $5,903,638.
Thank you, Sue.
Welcome.
Okay, so page 303, which is contributory retirement. Again, this kind of is what it is. This follows a schedule. So there's something about 1.4% increase or something. The personnel board or some board with the COLA increase of, you know what I.
Actually,
There's a COLA adjustment in here. So I mean, all this stuff is really just kind of pulling from obligations we've made with our retirement expenses.
Correct.
Has he covered the ground, Sue?
He did. Last year, the town voted to increase the COLA base from 13,000 to 14,000 for all retirees. FY20 was an actual valuation for retirement and OPEB, and this is straight off of their schedules.
Any questions or comments?
No.
Or recommendation on that?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend what Sue said to do, which is $5,443,559 in contributory retirement accounts. Okay, on page 304, we have Medicare taxes. I'm not sure how you get around taxes, but our portion of employers' Medicare, right, again, is formulaic. And this is the one with the 1.45% of salaries. Is that?
Yes, that is correct.
This is mandatory. This is do not pass go, do not collect $200 if you do not pay this. So.
And this is for every employee, town, school, and encompasses everyone.
Municipal and schools.
Yes.
Perfect. So unless there's any objection,
comments?
you can ask a question. We may or may not answer it, and it won't change the recommendation.
Do you have
Sue,
a recommendation?
Can I just interrupt
Sorry,
really
Dave.
quickly? Sue,
Yes,
I'm
you
just
can,
curious,
Dave.
do you have, what would be your rule of thumb for the benefit cost of a new employee, just in general? What do you tack on?
30%.
30%? Okay, thanks.
Of total salary.
Yes, Andy.
Why is the school included in here?
Why? Because they're included in all employee benefits. Retirement, group insurance, OPEB. It's one pot for all employees.
All right, so that all that comes out of the municipal budget, and the school budget for employee expense just so shows salaries?
Yes.
Okay. So that there's roughly the salaries, 30% of the salary budget of the school gets paid by the town.
If they take, well, teachers no, because teachers are in mass teachers retirement, not in Hingham retirement. And if they don't take health insurance, then that's, the rule of thumb is about 30%, only because of health insurance also.
Do all municipalities account for school benefits this way?
I have no idea.
Anything else, Counselor?
Andy, I would think so, because it's all coming out of this, it's a town liability. It's a town liability for the retirees.
No, the only thing I'm thinking is that we hear frequently that the town doesn't spend as much as benchmark towns on education on a per student basis. And it would make quite a difference if the benefits portion was included in the school budget.
I give them a schedule every year. For their annual report, you're talking, Andy?
No. Well, I don't know where the figures come from, whoever.
For the per
PRC
pupil?
Yeah, for the per pupil spend from
Yes,
DESI.
for the DESI, yes.
Yeah.
I give John Ferris a schedule every year of their debt, their group insurance, their retirement portion, their workers' comp. I give them a schedule of what percentage is theirs.
So that should be included in the calculation of how much is expended per student.
It should be. I give it to them, whether
Yeah.
I presume they use it.
Yeah, and I think they have to submit that to DESI too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know, Evan, who puts together that chart? Who calculates the per student expenditures on a municipal basis?
I think it's a formula.
I think we may be digressing from
Yes, we are.
our task tonight, and we still have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, we do. So
apologize.
yes, we do know who that is, but we'll let's stay tuned for a different evening on that one.
Tomorrow night.
So I'm
Yeah,
going to
that'll
make
be
a
tomorrow night.
recommendation. Yeah, actually, on our AdCom meeting, I'm going to make a recommendation on employer care of $1,177,935. Group insurance, or what I like to call Sue's sandbag fund. Always puts in a number, and she always comes in under.
Oh, it's the secret sauce. Come
That's
on.
That's right.
All right, group insurance, basically, we're not going to know GIC rates until the first week of March. So technically, when we first start the budgets, what we do is we do group insurance at 10% over this fiscal year's budget. I have heard 5%, I have heard up to 8%. So I am not really sure. And when GIC does what they say, it's overall a 5, 6, or 7% increase, which does not mean everything that goes up that percentage. Each plan, which there are 14 different insurance plans that employees and retirees can choose from, on the average, they go up that percentage. So one plan might go up 2%, one plan might go up 20%. So we technically just do 10% until I get the rates. So this could be, yes, it's our little look under the rock and we find money because the GIC rates come in lower than we had anticipated.
So before we vote our final budget, this number will probably be adjusted.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Other
And then-
questions, comments? Do you have a recommendation of?
Well, I was OPEB. Are we, we've got the group insurance number and the OPEB number. Anybody have any questions on OPEB?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm happy to make a recommendation of both of them together.
Go for it.
All right, I'll recommend $7,347,181 in group insurance benefits and $1,267,567 in OPEB, other post-employment benefits, for total of group insurance of $8,614,748. But in the 4 years we've been doing this, it's never been as high as we recommend in these budget meetings.
I did have a question, Sue, on the OPEB.
Yes.
At roughly what percentage of the full future liability are we now? And does that still put us in the upper tier of our benchmark communities?
Hingham has always been one of very few municipalities that have been funding OPEB. I think we just had the valuation done. I think we're at 38 or 39%. We should be fully funded by 2035 for both OPEB and retirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
So none of us will still be on AdCom then.
And hopefully I won't be here either.
You will be.
When
Evan,
OPEB
in
is fully
2020.
funded. Yep. Okay, can we move on?
Yes.
to unemployment compensation. We have two line items that make this up. I'm just going over my notes here, sorry. This number is generally trending down because of various settlements, and there's one line item that keeps getting dragged through because we have an employee who
That's
is
workers'
relatively
comp.
young, who is oh, sorry. That's the next one. Okay. So then I screwed this one up. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this one?
Sure. Unemployment is $30,000. COVID has wreaked havoc with unemployment, but hopefully the fraudulent claims will be all settled. We will not have to pay them. Any COVID-related workers' comp, unemployment, sorry. Now see, Evan, you're messing me up. Unemployment claims will be reimbursable by the Plymouth Cares. So 30,000 is usually the standby level funded amount that we usually go by.
So my recommendation for that will be $30,000 of unemployment compensation.
Okay, workers' comp is where we want to go. Workers' comp is basically we pay health insurance claims and or benefits to any employee that gets hurt on the job. If the senior people in an advisory would know, workers' comp has actually always had to have a reserve fund transfer at the end of the year until last year. We have been trending downward, which is a good thing. We do have one legacy spouse of an employee who died on the job. She will get a lifetime benefit for her lifetime. But the $330,000, I feel very comfortable with that being a budget for next fiscal year too.
Okay. So our recommendation.
Any questions?
No.
All right, go for it, Evan.
Don't you like this? I bully my way through these budgets. This is fantastic. Yeah, we're going to recommend $330,000 in workers' compensation.
And that's why you got all the one-line budgets.
I did. It's amazing. The ones that you really can't do much with.
Who did you pay off?
I don't know. I mean, I think they probably just looked at me and said, we don't want to give them anything too complicated.
And here's your last chance for glory tonight, Evan.
Exactly. Unclassified, which, I mean, who didn't want to get the unclassified budgets, right? By the way, Alan, Julie, and I all spent time with Sue going over these instead of doing it one by one. So on page 308,
property and liability.
Yeah, property liability insurance. Do you want to explain, Sue, this is a huge increase based on the claims that we've had related to the high school, and where else do we have?
Say the middle school roof, the high school fire, and East School flood.
Yep. And we were potentially in jeopardy being dropped by our insurance carrier. And Sue and company are working with our insurance broker to potentially take our portfolio back out to bid. But the reason we've seen such a kick up in the budget is because of the large claims that have been made against us.
Yes. Actually, the ratio of claims to premiums has been the last 3 years about 150 to 175% of our premiums. So for every dollar we've paid, they have paid $1.75 back to the town.
Well, thank God, at least one of us is doing it right.
Right?
That's not very good news though, Dave.
I know.
I will let you know, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but I will be coming to you guys for either a reserve fund or an intra-department transfer for this year's budget, because this is the year our premiums skyrocketed. So there's not really much of a difference between 21 and 22. You won't see it until you see it go over to the expended side, because
Okay.
it's going to be about a $200,000 reserve fund transfer.
Okay, so the reserve fund transfer looks like the budget really expended for 21 will look more like the budget.
$1 million almost, yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm
is
sorry,
this a
did you say-
number that may change before we vote the final budget because of a potentially new insurance carrier?
We won't know that until August.
Okay. All right.
And I will guarantee you, it doesn't matter where we go. Every insurance company, Alan can probably weigh in on this too. They are going to look at the 5-year history.
Yep.
All right, so the recommendation is $1,020,000.
Were there any other questions?
No,
I guess
no.
not. Go for it, Evan.
I did.
And one last little thing, the rest of the unclassified, you will see as zeros. They are now going into the selectmen's budget.
So I don't need to recommend that.
No, you do not.
Fantastic. Boom, done.
Good job, Evan.
Thanks,
And-
Julie.
Thank you, Evan. And we saved the best for last. Aaron and dispatch and Sue.
All right, so we'll turn to page 133. And dispatch is also referred to as SHREC, which is, I'm not even going to figure out what that acronym is, but basically it's a shared 911 service or dispatch, which Hingham shares between Cohasset, Hingham, Hull, and Norwell. This number represents a portion, our portion of a mechanical formula based off of this year's actual number. So all that is to say is that this is basically a placeholder that's 5% more of what we have spent in this actual year. The reason why we do a placeholder is because SHREC hasn't even started their budget process yet, but we need to accommodate and plan for that budget request. But if I remember correctly, in years past, this 5% placeholding dollar amount has been pretty close to what, if not spot on to what is required for that.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, Victor, you're muted.
What is Shrek's total budget? Roughly.
Oh, what? Ugh.
Or what's
It's our portion, I guess.
Our portion, I think, is, good question, Victor, because it doesn't say. I know we're at least half. I think
My
we're a
memory
little,
is-
I think we're a little more than half.
My memory is we had the lion's share.
We do.
right, the lion's share, right? 51% or 90%. But okay, so it's a little more than half is what you think.
I believe so, yes.
Other questions or comments? I will also, for our new members, say that many of us have toured the SHREC facility, which is right in Town Hall in the past. And they are very open to having members of the advisory committee come and actually see what they do and their setup. And it's pretty impressive. So if anybody is interested in seeing that kind of, having that kind of tour, we could coordinate setting it up.
That was pre-COVID. I'm not sure what they're gonna do for right
Oh.
now.
Yeah, you're right, Sue. Okay, well, having said that, I take it all back. Next year,
They have way better computers and toys than the town of Hingham, that's for sure, but.
Oh, yes, they do. It's like Star Trek.
yeah, it looks like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise.
It is. Oh, my goodness.
So do we have a recommendation then, Aaron?
Yes, I recommend.
Question.
George has a question. Go ahead, George.
Go
So
for it,
who
George.
actually approves the SHREC budget?
The board of the managers. The town administrators of each town.
And Sue is
That's
their
the board.
accountant, right? You're their accountant.
We do their financials, yes. I'm not their accountants. We just
Oh.
do their, we do their payroll, we do their accounts payable.
Other questions? Okay, I think we're ready for the recommendation.
All right, well, we recommend a, let's see, $941,182.
Okay. Great job on getting through a lot of budgets tonight. Thanks for all your great work. I am so happy that Victor and Aaron persuaded me not to do public safety budgets tonight. You know, I think I'd be putting my pajamas on before the end of the meeting. We've got some minutes to approve. I hope everybody took a look at them beforehand. Did anyone have any suggested revisions or changes to November 17th?
Let's keep going, Bob.
Hearing none, we can go for a roll call vote. All right, Kristen? I don't have the list of attendees in front of me. Do we have any abstentions?
No, we do not. Everybody was there.
Okay, great.
Bob,
So, yes,
can I propose maybe a roll call for all 3 minutes? If there are, I don't know, George, if there are any people that weren't at any of those meetings, but then we could just do it once.
I would love to do that.
No, we can't. We have people missing.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice try.
I like the idea, though.
I like your idea.
I like the idea too, although I think I proposed something like that before and Victor shook his head. And I always, want to abide by the conscience of the advisory committee. So, so in any event, on November 17th, Kristen,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
Victor,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Libby,
Aye.
Evan,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Tina,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Evelyn,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
and Al.
Aye.
Okay, I think that's 14-0. And on November 19th, we had some missing.
We had 5 people out.
And,
You want me to tell you who they were?
yep, I don't have it right in front of me.
Tina, Alan, Brenda, Aaron, and Nancy were not in.
Nancy, that's 4. Was there
Tina, Alan, Brenda, Aaron, and Nancy.
Oh, Aaron, okay. All right. Any comments or revisions to November 19th?
No.
Okay, well, let's go for a vote then. Kristen,
Aye.
Brenda,
Not applicable. Wasn't there.
oh, sorry. Victor,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Libby,
Aye.
Evan,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Dave Anderson,
Aye. Can you hear me?
Julie,
Aye.
Evelyn,
Aye.
okay, so I think that's then
9:05.
905.
Yep.
Okay. And December 22nd.
Did we get minutes for December 22nd?
I think George circulated them last week.
Yeah,
I've not seen them. So I can abstain.
yeah.
I just checked my
Um,
emails again now. I don't have anything from you.
Well, we can defer December 22nd's minutes. We were gonna, that was the joint meeting with the selectmen and the school committee. And we were, and neither of them have posted minutes yet. So we did want to kind of do a double check on those minutes before, if possible. But we'll be meeting again next Tuesday. So we can get the December 22nd minutes out and defer voting on those till next Tuesday. And that gets us to liaison reports, and we have quite a few. So I think if people could primarily give us the highlights and due to the hour of the evening. And I think especially anything relating to potential warrant articles. So I think I listed education first. Dave, do you want to bring us up to date?
Sure. I'll just, I'll give you the highlights. I think anybody who wants a deeper dive, we have an ACES meeting tomorrow at 7 o'clock on Zoom, which you're more than welcome to attend. I predicted maybe the best attended ACES meeting of all time. So if history is a yardstick with the parent engagement in school budget this year, it will be a blockbuster. Having said that, I think I will give you the numerical highlights of the budget proposal, but I don't do so to shock anybody or to imply that it's not seriously worthy of consideration. I think anybody, myself included, who has children in the school, or anybody who just thinks about what it's like to educate a seven-year-old or a seventh grader over virtual school for what's now 140 school days since the school shut down. I think it's obvious there's going to be some real challenges that I think by and large the administration has really met exceptionally well, given all the curveballs and changing rules and changing regs, et cetera. So like I said, I'll give you the highlights and the numbers, but no, there's a lot of detail behind it and a lot of thought and a lot of kind of nuance and understanding that we'll start to take up with ACES tomorrow. I think we're still a little bit of a ways away from reaching a conclusion on this. And I think when you hear the numbers, you'll realize that we're a long ways away from knowing where the money comes from just yet, but it's a discussion we need to have. So bottom line for folks who are new to AdCom, the school budget kind of historically rolls forward due to union contracts and other agreements around teacher and administrator longevity, changes in certification, changes in accreditation, those kind of things. The budget tends to roll forward at around a 4.5% clip annually if there are no changes. So a level services budget comes in at about a 4.5% bump over the previous year. This year, even before we talk about kind of the academic and social and emotional impact of the pandemic on kids, the level services budget is coming in at a 5.9% increase. And the reason for that, and I haven't teased out these numbers fully yet, but the stated reason from the administration is that there is both a revenue loss from the fact that there was no kindergarten this year and that there was therefore no Kids in Action, which was a fee-for-service program after kindergarten for students who had parents that were both working. So you have some revenue loss, which contributes to the exacerbated operating loss for the business. And then there were some kind of one-time expenses related to software licenses and a few other things, offsets that didn't come through related to food service, et cetera. So when the sun rises next year, we're at 5.9% increase, which is almost 130 basis points higher than we would typically expect. Now for the fun part, which is the recovery budget, which is what the administration thinks is necessary to really try to address some of the impact of COVID on both academic and social and emotional impact. And that comes in at a this is an aggregate number. So if we were to approve the recovery budget, which includes the level services, obviously, and then the incremental things, we get to a 10.1% increase, or put in numerical terms, a $5.7 million increase against what would, we would typically have expected to be something more like a $2.5 million increase. So big numbers in the context of our budget. When I say our budget, I mean the overall Hingham budget. So, work to do in all kinds of respects. And that's really the top line.
Thanks, Dave. Julie, do you want to bring us up to date on CPC?
Sure, I'll try to hit the highlights because we're going to have more meetings about this. But the Community Preservation Committee met last week and took its final vote on what projects to recommend to annual town meeting. The budget available funds this year was $1.6 million. The CPC has to make some minimum debt service payments for 2 previously approved projects. That's the purchase of the Laner land in 2016, and then also funding that was put towards the purchase of the Benjamin Lincoln House in 2020. So the CPC approved 4 projects, 2 debt payments related to what I just mentioned, and then 1 payment to its administrative fund. So for the admin fund, it's $10,000. It's just reserved for their operational administrative expenses. The CPC chose to pay more than its minimum required debt payment for the Laner land. They decided to pay down almost double the amount of the principal that was due for this year. So it's $656,313. I guess they want to accelerate the debt payoff because that project otherwise, if you stay on schedule, wouldn't be paid off until 2036. The Benjamin Lincoln House, they increased the amount of debt by about 20% in their payment because they had to hit the minimum 10% benchmark for CPA dollars allocated towards historic preservation. And then finally, the 4 projects. At the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust, they recommend $700,000, which was their requested amount. A consulting study for the Inner Harbor requested by Harbor Development for $60,000, which is about $15,000 shy of their requested amount. Money to restore military memorials and historic markers, that's $15,000 requested by Veteran Services and Historical Commission. And finally,
Oh, she froze.
The anticipation's killing me.
The buildup, number 4.
Evan, she made fun of your gravelly voice the other day. She totally froze.
I know. And she gave me a lot of crap for it too, Helen. You're frozen, Julie. I'm gonna take a picture of the screen because it's kind of awesome. There she froze.
You bad.
Oh,
Kristen
Bob.
probably just hit best status on Fortnite.
Where's Steve Becker?
You have no idea how bad I actually.
She knows, right? She's
Okay, she knows now. I'm going to send her an email.
Since we have a sec, Dave mentioned the ACES meeting tomorrow night. Don't we have a meeting tomorrow night on the school budget?
No, there's no advisory committee.
That's
is
the advisory committee, education subcommittee.
Okay, I thought we were doing, okay, I thought.
No, that's.
Gotcha.
Alan, you're welcome to join us.
Awesome. That'll be good.
And Capital Outlay is doing the school capital, so you're more than welcome to come to that meeting.
Or you can stay home and drive nails through your hand. That might be more fun.
Oh, yeah. Bob, should we just move on to the next liaison update? To keep things moving?
Yeah, Brenda, you were going to give us an update on the climate action likely warrant articles.
I think not likely, but definitive. The selectmen voted last week to insert 2 warrant articles. First one of which would be to set aside funds for the creation of a climate action plan with the goal of reducing Hingham's overall carbon emissions to net zero by 2040. The amount of money requested is unspecified at this point. They are working still to define that. I think the way that Selectmen worded it was that the recommendation would come from advisory, but what Brad tells me is that in fact the recommendation will come from the task force who are meeting tonight with Hingham Light Plant folks and with the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, because those are the people putting together the number. Hingham Light Plant has said they will provide some of the funding, so the ultimate request will be less. The second warrant article is basically creating the Climate Action Planning Committee, which the first wording of it was for 15 members. I think the selectmen thought it should go down a little bit. So the wording Brad just sent me today is for 12 members, but basically those are the two warrant articles.
Welcome back, Julie.
Where was I? No, I'll just cut to the chase.
We're
Um,
waiting for the fourth project.
No, we
What?
moved on. We moved on.
Wait, what project did I leave out?
Number
The last
The
one.
last one.
Oh, it's the bathroom. It's the new bathroom at Bear Cove Park.
Okay.
The most exciting one for some and not exciting for others. But anyway, they want to build an eco-friendly bathroom. So anyway, they chose to not fund a couple projects that were also requested for Bear Cove Park, which is the Dock House Museum, doing some renovations there, and then building an outdoor pavilion. So anyway, the next steps is that AdCom is going to have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen to hear the Community Preservation Committee explain these projects. And Bob, I don't think we have a date yet for that.
No, we don't. They were anticipating somewhere in the first 2 weeks of February. And jumping ahead to some of our housekeeping, there's been some discussion about how we're not having a separate hearing on these articles and considering the joint hearing to be our hearing as well. That seems that it might be appropriate this year where there are so few CPC projects, 4 of them. And we should be in a position to ask all our questions at the joint meeting without having a separate presentation on a later night. So if that made sense to everybody, we could have that joint meeting and then have our vote at our next meeting following. Does anybody see the need for kind of a repeat CPC presentation?
No.
Well, we would have CPC come to that AdCom meeting to answer any other questions that come up.
Yeah, they could come to our voting meeting, and to the extent there was further discussion, people had questions that came up, we could ask those questions. But I don't know that we need separate presentations on 2 nights.
We would try to get we would work on getting the comment out to you guys before that first meeting with the Board of Selectmen. I guess that's what we would aspire to do. So we have plenty of time.
Okay, it sounds like people are in general agreement on that. If anybody disagrees, they can either email me or bring it up at our next meeting, which will happen before the joint meeting. Brenda brought us up to date, Julie, on the 2 climate action articles. And Brenda and or Andy, were you going to address tree preservation?
I can fill you in on what I know. It's not clear to me that this is actually going to be a warrant article this year. The study group they believe they can't submit a warrant article, that it has to be done by the selectmen. They sent one to the selectmen and to a bunch of other people looking for feedback on December 1st. They have literally not gotten feedback from anyone, including the town council, that they had several questions for. They did finally get on the budget agenda of the Conservation Commission last week. So that group is informed and offered a little input and seems to be in support. They wrote up a warrant article, a bylaw as a zoning bylaw. And Their question is whether it should be a zoning bylaw or a general bylaw. That's the council question that they haven't gotten a response to. So at this point, Priya Howell says that she's waiting to hear back from her liaison to the selectmen, who's Bill Ramsey, whether or not the selectmen will be willing to open the warrant to insert this article later. And she hasn't heard about that either. So at this point, she's asking to meet with the three of us who are liaisons, Andy, Evan, and myself, and we're in the process of trying to get that scheduled for next week to sort of get.
Andy wanted to do it on a Friday night at 5:30. Please.
All right, could you put him on?
We're going to next week. We're going to next week. So, but anyway,
All right, so that's still up in the air.
That is still very much up in the air, is what I would say.
Okay, and Nancy, I think I skipped over public safety facility, but I understand the selectmen voted to go ahead with a warrant article on that.
Yes, so they have a proposed warrant article it will be a borrowing article. So to raise an appropriate borrow transfer to be used to pay for expenses for design, architectural, engineering, owner's project management, and professional services. So basically they're looking to, the committee has continued to meet at a fairly decent clip. And they're hoping to continue their work. Again, they are well aware of, how this might be perceived. But they are holding firm on the line that this is not in any way impacting any other capital projects in town. And it's just to continue the good work that's already been done.
Okay, great, thank you. Hingham Affordable Housing Trust.
Sure. So just an update on some of the process. There's no, not expected to be any warrant article other than obviously part of CPC funding goes to the Affordable Housing Trust. I'll just update on, there's several projects going on, and if you sort of follow the trust, it just takes forever, it seems, to get these properties ready. Well, it just does. So, is there? Oh God!
Too many lawyers involved, Evan.
Evan, you're too much.
Oh
How much wine has been in that room tonight? That's what I want to know. All right.
None.
So
that's so flattering. Keep it up. That's so flattering.
What I want to know is, why does Evan have a huge picture of Julie behind him?
Because he's unkind.
it's going to be in the Hingham Current tomorrow.
Yep.
All right, so the 499 Cushing Street project is continuing. What they're trying to decide is if there can be two houses there. There's one now. In the process, they actually do have a renter in that because this has been going on now. We're into like year 3. So they're exploring the possibility of that second unit, which has to do with septic and such things. But in the interim, there is land behind 499 Cushing Street. There's about 8 acres that the landowners would like to sell and have approached the trust about possibly purchasing that land, and therefore there'd be more room for more houses. The property at 2931 Road Circle, which is the duplex, that you might remember the trust got a grant last year of $140,000 for that. They put that out to bid for the renovations that need to be done. They actually got 2 responses. Their initial round for bids got no responses, so they were pretty happy about 2, and they have voted to accept one of those, and that vendor will complete the renovations that need to be done there, which include some hookup to the septic system or to the sewer system by June 30th. The Whiting Street project, which is a Habitat for Humanity. Habitat has had a series of their meetings with various groups, and they are now in the space of creating construction plans. So that's moving forward. And at 270 Central, you might remember I think that's the original Habitat house, maybe, that the owner of that house died and the town repurchased the house last year. but it needs significant work. And they're trying they've been trying to get the building inspector to go in and see what work that needs to be done so that can be updated. And there's also an issue of, for some reason, that never got on our actual housing list. So there's also the movement to do that. So all of those continue. And the only other thing I would say is they are talking at the trust mainly in executive session. So I don't know about, so we don't know about that as liaisons, but they are talking about purchasing the back portion of the old ship property for the expansion of the Lincoln School apartments. So there's a lot going on. It just takes a while.
Okay, thanks to you, Elaine. And Libby, you were going to bring us up to date on harbor development, potential warrant articles, or?
Yes, just real quick, they are planning on it. If those of you on AdCom last year remember, at the last minute, the town pier wharf article was pulled. And so they are going to have, they voted at their meeting last week to submit that article again this year. And just real quick, the kind of 3 hurdles last year was, one, we were in transition with town engineer, and the new town engineer, I think, is it J.R. Fry? Is that his name?
Yes.
I think he's been in the loop on the project, and the other issue was the height of the wall and whether that was sufficient based on potential updates to the Kleinfelder study. And then the final issue was the price tag jumped significantly as we were getting closer to AdCom hearing that article. And so for those 3 reasons, Harbor Development pulled the article last year, so they will be resubmitting it again this year. That's it.
Wasn't there some opposition at the Conservation Commission to the current proposal?
I believe that there was, with respect to the height of the wall. I had a conflict and couldn't attend that meeting. I don't know if Andy went to that meeting, but I think there was, but I think they feel like they have a path to move this through this year to be heard and voted.
I went to that meeting, and it was it sounded pretty fierce backlash from the Conservation Commission. I left that meeting thinking, okay, I guess they won't have a warrant article. Where do they go now? But I don't know. Maybe they've talked it out after that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think their position is that it's they can always pull it, but if they don't make it in by the 20th, then they're restricted. So I think they felt at this point that they really didn't have much to lose going forward with it, and can always change their mind if they need to. But, you know, I just reminded them there are a lot of competing capital projects for, you know, just forget about the operating budget issues with COVID, but there also are a lot of capital projects that they're going to be competing with. So I think it's a challenge, but either way, but I think they wanted to just move forward and at least have the opportunity to move forward.
Okay. And Victor, you were going to bring us up to date on zoning?
Yes, the planning board 2 weeks ago opened its hearings on the 4 zoning articles that have been presented. There was a lengthy presentation on the accessory dwelling unit article that's to allow accessory dwelling units in accessory buildings. Right now, they're only allowed within the principal structure. That was by the proponent. There were questions from the board, generally okay with it, but there were some issues with specifics in the proposal. The interesting thing to keep in mind, the recent economic bond bill that passed with housing choice legislation changes the 2/3 requirement for voting at town meeting for certain zoning changes, including ADU proposals, to majority. I think it goes into effect for this year. So that may not be a 2/3 vote that we're facing. The other 3 articles, they were briefly introduced: limited site plan review, and 2 floodplain articles, one just to bring up the town's maps to the current FEMA maps. And then the other would be to update the town's floodplain bylaw to match some requirements from the state. All of those hearings have been continued to February 8th.
And Brenda, you had some late breaking news on the Hingham Municipal Light Plant with a warrant article?
Yeah, at last week's meeting, Paul Haynew said that he was submitting a warrant article to bond, to get a bond to pay for the third transmission line and third substation project that he talked with all of us about at the AdCom meeting last fall. Originally, this was sort of a redundancy project to have a third source of power coming into town because the other two lines come in on the same poles, and it's therefore possible that they could both be knocked out at once. But at this point, this project, from their point of view, is thought of as more needing increased capacity with so many things needing to go electric in the near future with the state's climate goals and with Amazon possibly bringing its warehouse in. So they need to get going on this project. They found a site on Hobart Street that the Conservation Commission has signed off on, Eversource has signed off on, so they think they've got the right place to go. So they want to get the money to get it built.
Great, thank you. All right, we've got some housekeeping. The selectmen are going to finish their budget hearings by the end of January. I think we're probably going to have another 4 meetings to handle all our budget reviews. I don't think we can go quite as fast as the selectmen did. We'll have a meeting next Tuesday night. We'll have the public safety budgets. And if there are some additional budgets that we can attend to, we will maybe try to add a few more to next Tuesday. And I'll get an email out about that tomorrow or the next day. We need to do a review of our policies and procedures. AdComs in the past have typically done this and approved them in October. There actually was an issue that arose about our policies and procedures with respect to the AdCom bylaw. Our policies and procedures actually say that the AdCom can submit warrant articles. And because of a discussion I had with a member of the Historical Commission that was thinking of submitting an article, he had checked with the state, and the state basically says you can submit warrant articles if you are a policy-making committee. We, however, really are not a policy-making committee. So I talked with John Coughlin about this in a preliminary way, but I think we probably need to take a good, careful look at our policies and procedures. I'd love some volunteers who might have an interest in doing that, especially those from our legal brain trust.
So Bob, you're talking about doing another full review or just this specific issue that you're talking about?
Well, that's the only issue that I'm aware of at this point. I mean, I know we've looked at these and made minor tweaks, I think, every year going back for quite a while. And it just escaped my attention that this would have been a good thing to do back in October. So I hate to spring it on people in the midst of budget season, but it probably is something that we need to get to.
I'd be willing to work on that.
Okay.
When was the last time AdCom submitted a warrant article?
People can't remember that.
We do, of course, establish the financial policy of the town.
That is not typically done by a warrant article, however.
No, in terms of whether we, as a group, established policy.
That is true. I mean, the answer may be that we may be able to submit warrant articles. It is not a usual procedure in my experience.
Why would we though?
Why would we?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a hypothetical question. It's beyond the scope of my
There's no, there should be a
ability
rule
to
in our-
speculate
in our-
tonight.
There should be a rule in our manual that says no hypothetical questions after 10 PM ever.
Exactly.
Well, we wouldn't be submitting our warrant article that we voted on early to the Board of Selectmen if we could do it ourselves. Right?
Right. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I formulated our vote tonight as to ask the Board of Selectmen to insert the bylaw amendment.
Right.
So if there are other people with an interest, could they get back to me and maybe join Dave Aline in doing a review? Okay. We
Yeah,
usually don't.
Let me just think out loud for a minute. Are there disadvantages to our submitting warrant articles? I mean, would we be importuned by various other committees or departments to submit a warrant article on their behalf? If it was perceived that we had the power to do so as a and around the selectmen?
Well, I don't see that any committees have done that in the past. I don't see that we really, and I think our answer would be, we don't make that kind of policy, and that is not our job. We are a neutral advisory committee that is giving our best collective advice to the town meeting.
But Bob, if we submit any warrant article, we're no longer neutral, right? Because we're advocating the article. It's a little different this year because the article we're submitting goes directly to our bylaw.
Right.
But under any other circumstance, the article we submitted, we've sort of prejudged it, right?
Well, I mean, we're going to write a comment that says, this is what we recommend.
But we'd have done that without have had it gone through the regular hearing process.
Well, I suppose we had our hearing tonight. We did have a group of us look at it, and Coughlin looked at it. I think it was a pretty straightforward issue.
Oh, I think that one's different. It goes to how we operate and it.
Right. I mean, if we were to do something more substantive, I think we'd maybe be in hot water. It's one of the reasons why I think these policies and procedures need to be looked at. And, if we need to take that out of there, it may even be inconsistent with state law. And John Coughlin probably ought to weigh in on this. I don't know if he's ever really reviewed what we have on our website as our rules, policies, and procedures. But I don't want to prolong the meeting tonight to talk about this, but I did want to flag the issue and start to move forward on it.
Who's going to fall asleep? We've got to move this along.
So, what was that?
Who's going to fall asleep? We got to move this along.
We don't usually meet on February vacation week, but this year it's such a weird year. I doubt if people are traveling, and where you can attend meetings by Zoom. Does it make sense for us to use that Tuesday night for a meeting?
Yes.
I think so.
Yep.
Anyone object to that? Okay. All right.
But let me ask you a question. I think I know the answer to this, Bob, but let me ask you and Victor. Are we permitted to sign nominating papers for people who are running for office, or is that something we should not do?
I think the answer is that yes, you are permitted to do that.
Okay, we
I think
just
it's been
can't
the
do any,
practice. I think it
Pardon?
has been the practice. I think it has been the practice that people have done that, but not to support the person publicly, right? Nominating papers doesn't mean that you are supporting the person's candidacy. Right?
Yeah.
You're just getting them on the
okay,
ballot.
I mean,
okay, thank you.
I have never
That-
put I have never put a sign out in front of our property.
Right,
My wife has.
I have not, but my wife has. I love that we're piercing this veil of secrecy on AdCom.
Well, I don't think we can disenfranchise our better halves, just because we're on the AdCom. Town meeting, technically, according to the bylaw, I think would take place on April 26th. It may actually take place 2 days earlier on Saturday, the 24th. And that's because it is again likely to be an outdoor meeting. And one of the scheduling issues is that, at least at present, we apparently have no ability to move the town election. So that if we were to say we're going to have, our town meeting in June, and we elect the new selectmen in May, all of a sudden you've got a select board that is not comprised in the same manner that it was comprised when they investigated and acted on warrant articles. So right now, it looks like Saturday, April 24th may be the date of the town meeting. Tina, do you have a question?
That is in the middle, that is April break for the schools. And given the enthusiasm by all of the school parents, and if you follow Facebook, everybody's looking for places to go vacation. So I think you're going to run up against that as a concern of people whose kids are in school.
I think Julie actually kind of made that same comment when we were having our phone call with Tom Mayo and Michelle last week.
Yeah.
We as the
I think it's a
AdCom,
really bad idea.
we as the
Really
AdCom
bad.
don't
I'm gonna
really,
take flights if I can, though.
It could look almost intentional.
Yeah, I think it'll be interpreted very badly.
well, Julie and I can pass on those comments this week to Tom and Michelle. But
It's already controversial that it is the day after April break and has been for 20 years that I've been aware of. I think in this year in particular, that will be noticed even more.
Well, they just have to figure out a Saturday, and they have to figure out who's going to live with the fact that we would have an election. If we can't move the election date, then I guess that's the situation that the town administrator is in, but.
Well,
Can you do it could they do it the 10th?
Well, it's free. It could be freezing.
The problem
We were
gets
just
to
out there in
be-
November. Who cares if it's freezing?
Yeah, I
you
mean, we
know,
were,
there's
Yeah, but it's a lot more articles anyway.
there's about
That's true.
a 4 to 5 week gap between when the warrant needs to be completed, gets reviewed by the moderator, goes off to the printer, and then it has to be served so many days before the town meeting.
Yeah.
So to move the date up to April, we might find ourselves meeting 3 days a week just to get everything done.
When is the election, Bob?
The election is ordinarily the Saturday following
Right,
the first 2 days of the town meeting.
okay.
So if the town meeting was the 26th, And if we had a second night to the 27th, it would be the following Saturday that
Be
would
May
be,
1st.
would be the election. And a few years ago, I think we actually, when we had a rare third night of town meeting, we actually did have a differently comprised Board of Selectmen for the third night.
Yeah. It would be May 1st is this
Yep.
is the Saturday.
Now, there might be developments at the state legislature that alter all this, but they haven't happened yet. And so I'm just trying to provide everybody with information. I'm glad to have the input, and it will be strongly communicated to the town administration. I put warrant article editing procedures on. Nancy and Daveline have graciously agreed again to be our warrant article editors. And I think I'll just simply circulate before next Tuesday the proposed procedures. I don't know if there are any matters that were not anticipated within 48 hours. Hearing none, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kristen?
Aye.
Aye.
Brenda?
Aye.
Victor?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
George? George?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Tina?
Aye.
Daveline?
Aye.
Erin?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Evan, a real big eye from you.
Aye.